your way to work tomorrow, instead of sitting around with your finger up your ass, look around. There's a union out there called AFSCME, and they're busting their balls for you doing a lot of shit work you take for granted. For example, we pick up your fucking garbage. We got broads out there who keep your kids from getting run over by some hard-on. We plug up the holes in the road so you don't fuck up your car. And we push around a lot of little old ladies from Florida. We're out there zapping rats and roaches and making sure your kids don't drink piss from the fucking water fountains. We're fucking AFSCME, Amalgamated Federalization. Hey, I don't know what the fuck it means. All I know is we're hard-working, tax-paying people like you, and we don't take shit from nobody. You got that, asshole? AFSCME, the fucking union that works for you.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in to the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live. Chat, Theo wanted me to have a nose emote, so I guess that exists now. What the fuck? Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Central Committee stream. Your host, Mike from PA, is here, and we are live. Today is a big episode for the Reaction Podcast. We will have Samuel Cedar recording this afternoon, subject to that actually happening. Mike from Taiwan. All right, mods! We need to have a new sound drop for the Discord. We need a new sound drop for the Discord. I want to hear Mike is way more of a China glazer than me. Mike from Pennsylvania, more like Mike from Beijing. I want that as a sound drop. Major Russian oil facility hit. Oh boy. Oh great. Well, chat, I've got two things to tell you. Wow, I can't believe the peace treaty didn't work. I can't believe the ceasefire didn't work out. Damn, that's crazy. And second, and this is even more shocking, Democrats did something right. I have to say, it is the most unbelievable thing that has ever come out of my mouth. The Democrats won, and they did something right. Oh my God. Subway takes redemption. Okay. They had the strokes on. Oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Did you see the Chip Roy trying to pass the Mamdani Act? We should talk about that, huh? Yeah, I did actually see that. Iran seizes 2 ships. Ceasefire extended? Question mark. And then VA Dems do something. Democrats do something right. I mean, just so you can see how fair-minded I am, when the Democrats do something right, I immediately give them credit. And so if you're shocked by me saying this, you should probably understand that the reason why I'm never complimenting the Democrats is that they never do anything right. So the fact that they're doing something right and I'm giving them credit for it should not be surprising. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is something that I've said for a long time. Like, this is really my brand. The reason why I hate Democrats is because they refuse to fight Republicans correctly. Hey, Maple takes that Oliver on. Hell yeah. Nice get, Maple. This is why I hate Democrats. I think I wrote hate Democrats. Hold on. What? There's no fucking way I didn't say that. Is search broken? Of course it is. Blue check mark. Well, once you have 1,000 followers or whatever, you get a check mark anyway. I think that 1,000 blue, followers, you get a check mark anyway. I don't remember what it is. Let's just say I don't give any money to Elon Musk. Don't worry your little head. Don't worry your little head. I'm not giving any money to Elon Musk. Che Osei arrested? Che Osei arrested for attempting to prevent deed theft eviction. If you don't know what deed theft is, it is a scam where scammers find vulnerable elderly people who own their home, and then they basically trick them into signing paperwork that attaches some sort of encumbrance to the deed, and then eventually they sue them in order to take possession of the property. Chi. Is that what I said? Did I say Shay? Chi Osei. So, and all evictions are done by the sheriff, by the government. I don't know about New York. Does New York have a sheriff? I assume they do, right? I don't really hear about New York City sheriff elections, so maybe they don't. Maybe it's all folded into the NYPD. Yes, we do. I don't think so. What kind of question is that? What? There's not a sheriff in the city? Okay, nobody knows what they're talking about. Let me just find out. Is there a NYC sheriff? Unlike many U.S. locations, this is an appointed position under the Department of Finance. Really? Interesting. Okay, it's a mayoral. Okay, this is unusual. Well, there you go. That's exactly what I wanted to find out. It's appointed by the mayor. That's unusual. Usually the sheriff is elected. Sheriff, under sheriff, assistant sheriff.
We're not doing anything.
The way that the NYPD works is the law is, listen to me right now. What I say is the law. And then all cops reinforce whatever another cop is doing. That's the police state that America is.
What is the council member? Yo! I'm going, no. I'll be right. I'm gonna put you in the car.
Now, what a king. What a fucking king. City Councilor Chi Ose was arrested while defending his constituent Carmela Carrington from eviction. This is a result of deed theft and the ongoing displacement of black homeowners in Bed-Stuy. Our office is closely monitoring the situation and will provide updates as this develops. I will say this. If this was happening to rich white people, there would be a law in 5 minutes. There would be a law in 5 minutes. Whenever rich white people get scammed, that shit gets enforced immediately. They go and they come in with fucking helicopters on the guy. But if it's poor people or people of color, you created this dummy. This comes directly from renters' rights laws. No, it doesn't, you dumb fuck. Why do people just say shit? Legitimately, why do people just say shit like this? It blows my fucking mind. I think I'm just not quite smart enough. Like I guess I have to fully model being stupid in my head. Okay, so this guy doesn't know anything, and he's seeing evidence of a left-winger fighting for the rights of a property owner. And so, therefore, he has to create some sort of like made-up thing in his mind that, no, it's actually the government is bad. Because he can't understand people committing scams in private activity. You made the squatters have more rights than the owners. That's not what happened. That's not what deed theft is. It's like people just invent shit. They just invent stuff and they say things. They're dumb as fuck. Legitimately, this is why the internet, I gotta be honest with you. The more contact I've had with right wingers, the more authoritarian I've gotten over the years. I think that's the main way the internet has affected me. Like, I am much more in favor of suppressing the right, using the government, using the state than I was 7 years ago. The internet has made me more authoritarian against the right. Like, I legit, like, the more I talk to conservatives, the more I read conservatives when they feel like they have impunity, the more I'm like, oh, we've got to dismantle these are not legitimate positions. They are just the positions of like criminals, pedophiles, predators. And it's just, I wouldn't have said that 7 years ago. I wouldn't have been like, yeah, I understand why we need to take harsher measures against the right wing and capitalist liars. I wouldn't have said that 7 years ago. But now I'm like, the propaganda and the bots and the lies and the sadism, that's got to be dealt with. That's got to be dealt with. Right wingers love fantasizing about a made up world where squatters run an underground real estate gang. I'm sure there are instances where people abuse certain processes and they gain some sort of advantage, right? Like, I'm sure that's true. That's always true. But the reason why a lot of these processes, they're not the overwhelming majority of the abuse that takes place. The overwhelming majority of abuse that takes place is shitty landlords, scumlords. It is scams and real estate schemes and speculation. Like, the most 99% of the problems you see come from capital. Can we get the Kyle Dark Woke realization if you want to link it to me instead of giving me a quest? That raises the vibes faster, don't you think? Anyway, so what else are we talking about today? So let's get into the breaking news on the Iran war. Then we're going to talk about the Democrats doing something right. And I don't know if you know this, chat, but John Fetterman is going to get fucking primaried. Senator John Fetterman receives no support for re-election from Pennsylvania House Democrats. Oh yeah, he's fucked. He's absolutely fucked. Even people I have a lot of problems with hate his guts. They think he's a fucking moron. And he is.
We need re-education camps, bro. We might need re-education. I'm not so sure a gulag was a bad idea. Come to think of it, this is making me understand a lot of things I previously did not understand. I never used to understand authoritarian left movements. I'd be like, why are you authoritarian? Just be like libertarian left. Look, listening to these motherfuckers? I'm like, oh, I see. They had to do something about you motherfuckers.
That's the thing that a lot of people don't know. Like, you know, when you look at something like North Korea or the Soviet Union or China, and you're like, wow, there was some really harsh measures taken there during the revolutions or immediately thereafter. It's because you're getting an unclear picture of what was going on. When Mao was fighting the Civil War, the Chinese people were fleeing toward the communists. Like, do you understand that? Like, hundreds of millions of people were desperately fleeing with nothing but rags on their back toward the communists. That's not something that you hear in America. You don't know. And that's just basic facts. Entire armies would throw down the Republic of China flag and pick up the communist flag because of how evil and incompetent and corrupt the American allies were. It was just like the Taliban, honestly. Like it was in the sense of, like, you know how the Taliban just walked through the Afghan army with no resistance? And people are like, man, why is that? Must be because the Afghans are backward, evil people that love Islamic extremism. No, it's because the United States was propping up pedophile rapists who were kidnapping little boys off the street and holding them as sex slaves at every police station. That's why the Afghan people turned out against us, okay? Because there was a pedophile cabal ruling Afghanistan, allied with the United States. And why is that? Because the CIA loves pedophiles. The CIA loves pedophiles.
When the Sandinistas came to power in Nicaragua 10 years ago, filled with ideals and hopes for their nation and their people, they discovered a very awful thing. And it wasn't about themselves, even though they had to do it to themselves. It was about that capitalist encirclement. They discovered that they needed a secret police. They discovered that they needed a security police. Because all around them, coming in from two borders and within their own society, were acts of sabotage, espionage, attack, mercenary invasion, and the like. And they understood that if the revolution was going to survive, it would have to build up instruments of state power, instruments of coercion even. And these instruments, by the way, can make mistakes. And these instruments can not only make mistakes, they can commit some serious crimes. If there had been no invasion, if there had been no espionage, if there had been no attack, if there had been no White Guard armies burning villages, there wouldn't have been a Red Army of that size. There wouldn't have been a Stalin, there wouldn't have been a KGB. If there hadn't been a CIA, there wouldn't have been a KGB. If there hadn't been a NATO encirclement, there wouldn't have been a Warsaw Pact. And to lose sight of that fact is to lose sight of an essential force of what was going on over those 70 years, or 10 years. And if you want to know what the Soviet Union went through in its early years, just look at what Nicaragua went through in these 10 years, and then multiply that by 10. Every single one of those countries was targeted. They were targeted by missiles, they were targeted by acts of espionage, they were targeted by, as I say, economic embargo and all sorts of other forms of aggression. They were targeted by incredible propaganda barrages and the like. Unrelenting, unremitting. The most targeted socialist country in the world is not Nicaragua, was not Nicaragua. Not even Cuba, it was the Soviet Union. All those missiles were pointing to the USSR. They still are, and they're still building those missiles, and they're refusing to negotiate those missiles. Mercenary armies, destruction of the productive facilities of society, more invasion, more sabotage, economic boycott, economic embargo, monetary embargo, technological embargo.
Oh yeah, that's the, if you don't know what that was, that's America's nuclear artillery. So the plan was, if we got into World War III, was to nuke the fuck out of Germany. I don't know if you guys know that. They were going to nuke the fuck out of Germany. to like try to stop the Red Army.
Monetary embargo, technological embargo.
I think we still have the nuclear artillery. I think we still have that. Nuclear artillery units. I don't know if they still have it. I don't know if they still have the weapon, but I'm pretty sure they still have a unit that is trained. Okay, it looks like Russia followed the United States lead and deactivated its nuclear artillery units in 1993. By 2000, Russia reported nearly all nuclear artillery shells and missile warheads had been destroyed. As the U.S., what was their motto? The current commander is Eldred K. Ramtahal. Okay. I am not a robot. I am not a robot. What the fuck? I'm not training the fucking AI anymore. God damn it. Anyway, what was I saying? All right. Iran is seizing ships.
The new escalation in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it has seized 2 ships in that critical oil shipping route. And Iran state media saying a 3rd vessel is now, quote, disabled off the country's coast. All of this just hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran indefinitely. Let's go to CNN's Nick Robertson, who is in Islamabad, Pakistan, where those possible new talks between the U.S. and Iran are on hold. What do you know about these ships in Iran, that the one in particular that was seized in the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I think there are several things happening here, all at the same time. The president said there's divisions inside the Iranian leadership. We are absolutely seeing that play out in real time. On the one hand, you have ongoing diplomacy here in Islamabad. The Iranian...
I thought the Iranians said they aren't doing it.
Ambassador going in to meet the prime minister, and on the other hand you have the IRGC claiming that it has taken control of a number of ships in the Strait of Hormuz. At least one ship reporting an IRGC vessel coming up, an IRGC gunboat coming alongside of it. No radio communications. The gunboat starts shooting up that container ship. It's severe damage to the bridge. We understand no one injured there, and another ship in the same sort of area in the Strait of Hormuz, not far from the Iranian coastline, also shot up. Again, that ship, the crew, not damaged. But the IRGC here, the military, if you will, the hardliners in Iran, are signaling what we're hearing from the politicians. And the politicians are saying in Iran that the U.S. blockade on the Strait of Hormuz must be lifted. And President Trump was very clear last night when he, in his Truth Social post, extended the ceasefire. He also said, I'm not lifting the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Now, how does that play into what's happening in Iran with those leaders there who, the more moderates we might call them, who want to get into the talks? But we heard from the foreign minister there, who was the number 2 at the talks last week, saying that absolutely the United States needs to lift the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. It's clear. President Trump's made that clear.
All right, chat. European oil prices have spiked back above $100 a barrel. So, as I said, you remember last Friday, and I said, why did they do that? That was fucking stupid. They must, that helped Trump. So that's when oil prices crashed, right? Last Friday. And now it's very clear that there is no ceasefire. So now oil prices are surging again. And you can see this kind of like whipsaw, like, oh, it starts rising. And then, oh, yeah, we're going to have a ceasefire any day now. Then it rises. Oh, we're having a ceasefire any day. Okay. Oh, it doesn't look like we're having a ceasefire. Oh, wait, we are having a ceasefire. Oh, it looks like that was not true. Oh, it's rising again. So every time it dings off of $100 a barrel, there's rumors of a ceasefire. You can see it happening. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Every time it's around $100 a barrel, suddenly there's rumors of a fucking ceasefire again. And if you look at the markets are now at an all-time high. I believe we are at an all-time high, chat. Except the Dow is almost at 50,000. The S&P 500 is is near the all-time high. NASDAQ just hit a new high. 24,000 in the NASDAQ. I remember when the S&P 500 was 1,000. So oil prices are rising. It looks like the yields are flat, which is interesting. Crypto is rising. Bitcoin is up $12,000 from the bottom during the Iran war, which was around 63,000. So I don't know what to say. Everything's going up. Oil prices whipsaw after Trump extends ceasefire with Iran, but keeps blockade in place. No oil is being produced. No oil has been exported. What's going on? American oil prices have opened up a gap with European prices. They were actually trading above European oil there for a second. Now they are $8 cheaper than European oil. The big price spike in oil prices was back last Friday. Unbelievable. And I don't know what to say. United Airlines just came out and said, we're not going to make as much money because fuel prices are skyrocketing. United Airlines has cut its 2026 earning forecast to an adjusted $7 to $11 a share, down from $12 to $14 a share at the start of the year before the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. So United is saying we're going to get fucked by the oil prices, down 6% today. People are not like, this doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense that United Airlines is down 6% and they're projecting their profit to half and the stock market to also go to an all-time high. We are living in schizophrenic period of fake money. Like what the fuck is going on? Today, Iran has seized 2 ships. So both sides are now seizing ships. They're not having a peace talks. What is going on? Meanwhile, there's also a strike that hit in Russian oil production. We're seeing massive oil production threats metastasizing around the world, and people are walking around like nothing's happening. 95% of stock are owned by the rich. Of course, it doesn't reflect the economy. I mean, yeah. Obviously, markets are irrational. We all know that. We're leftists. That's why we are not market fundamentalists here. But this is just like crazy. They're not going to have anything to buy. It's obvious that crude is being shorted by the Treasury. Is it?
It's not going to happen. We had the leader of those negotiations saying that, from the Iranian side, saying that they weren't going to come into the talks under the shadow of threats. Now, the perception here in the region was clear that President Trump wanted to use the end of the ceasefire as a lever in the talks, as pressure on the Iranians. So it does appear by extending the ceasefire, the president's taken off that pressure point. However, the Iranians have come out and said, we didn't ask for that ceasefire to be removed. The diplomatic maneuvers here that we see in this city would indicate there's circumstantial evidence to suggest that the Iranians may well have asked for that ceasefire that was put forward by the Prime Minister, that the Foreign Minister here yesterday, that the Field Marshal here contacted President Trump about and he acted upon. But the diplomacy on the ground is playing out here. And the hope here is, contacts I talked to, that the talks can still happen. That optimism is still here.
Colonel, give us some sense of what the rules of war here are and what you make of this latest move by Iran seizing these ships after the United States seized one of theirs, I think, in the Sea of Oman.
Yeah, this is a very interesting development, Sarah, because what you're seeing is, as far as the rules of war are concerned, there's definitely an escalation here. Now, a country can seize ships if it believes that there is, some criminal activity going on, or there's a threat to their national security or their national sovereignty. So that's going to be Iran's point of view. And in this particular case, what you're seeing is you've got these ships, and now they are basically a bargaining chip for the Iranians. They're coming into these potential talks with ships in their possession. They have a third one, as you mentioned, that's disabled, that could also be seized. So you have a situation where they're going to come in and they're going to take as much advantage as they possibly can of the different ships that are out there, and any ship that's trying to run their blockade. They're going to try to take it over, because they are saying that they can control the Strait of Hormuz and extract tolls and things like that. So that's going to be a significant thing.
Look, Beth, when you're looking at the scenario, there was a report out by the Wall Street Journal, and they basically said the Iranians take Trump for a sucker. How many times do they expect him to play this game before they reopen the Strait of Hormuz, in their opinion section? Of course, the president responded with a long rant, angry about that. But is that what's happening here, or is it just this disjointed situation where you don't have, as you said, the final arbiter in all of this?
Well, I think that, while they don't have the final arbiter, we do know that the IRGC is ascendant. right? We do know, and we also know that even before the war, that the IRGC had more.
Could this be the best thing to happen for renewable energy production? Oh, except Trump is making it illegal to build renewable energy facilities. I don't know if you know, he's suing to like prevent a major wind farm. They put massive tariffs on Chinese solar panels. So could this be good? No, it couldn't.
More power in that state than any other institution. So that is happening right now, and I think that, you know, I wouldn't term it in the way that the Wall Street Journal did, but clearly the Iranians are reading us. They called our bluff and they said, we're not showing up. You didn't, you know, we never said we were going to show up. We're not showing up. And what did President Trump do? He said, we're going to bomb there, we're going to resume bombing, and now we didn't. And so by that, while I think this was absolutely the right thing to do, because resuming bombing wasn't going to get us closer to a negotiated solution, which is the only way we can get out of this, but at the same time, the Iranians take this as us, you know, chickening out.
I want to ask you, Colonel Layton, there's been a lot of talk from the Trump administration about demolishing Iran's capabilities militarily, its missiles, it's talked about. But we're seeing them parade this ballistic missile, you know.
Donald Trump cares more about windmills killing birds than Israel killing children. No, he doesn't. He's just a liar. He doesn't care about birds dying, okay? He's a lying sack of shit. He's getting bribed by oil and gas companies. Says he's just saying whatever bullshit he can to fill the fucking air, to insult your intelligence and piss you off. He's a fucking lying sack of shit. He believes in nothing. And he's cultivating nihilism. He's cultivating a cynicism and sadism and moral rot among his followers. And we're going to have to do something about them. Like, I mean, there's really nothing more to say. You can't have psychotic fucking weirdos like this. This is why I think studying Chinese history is a good idea, because they had a guy who claimed to be Jesus, and it led to a civil fucking war, which is like the war that had the most deaths in history. Okay, it's second after World War II. The Taiping Rebellion. How many Americans even know what this is? Part of the century of humiliation, you don't say.
In the streets of Tehran.
So we need to do. They admired him as an early revolutionary, yes, but he was also batshit. You know what I mean? Like, revolution is great, but he was also batshit. And we could have batshit lunatics like Donald Trump. And honestly, we really need to start having conversations about what we're going to do after Trump is out of power. And a lot of liberals, they would have put their head in the sand and just go, oh, it'll go back to normal. It'll go back to 2011. I remember 2011. Didn't you like 2011? Did you like watching Hamilton? Or was that 2013? Whatever. You remember 2013? Wasn't it chill? Once we vote, then it'll be Hamilton again. Back to brunch. Everything will go back to normal. And the reality is that's not possible. And there's just absolutely no plan. And honestly, for most Democrats, they get mad at having a plan, because they think if you have a plan, then your plan can be attacked. And they want to run a negative campaign, which is, we're not Trump. That's all they want to do. They just want to not be Trump. They don't want to have a plan. They don't want to have any responsibilities. They don't want to fix anything. They just want to say, we're not Trump. We're not Trump. Give me power and money because I'm not Trump. That's their fucking plan. And I got to tell you, the world, we don't have any more time. We don't have any more time to fix our shit. I don't want to spend my elderly years in hell. We need public execution through a series of Nuremberg trials. I don't think we need public execution. We could just release the photos of them, you know, after they're executed, right? And keep, you know, have the videos be kept in, like, you know, the archives or whatever that, you know, historians and whatnot and people can view. But, you know, we don't have to have public executions, right? That's a little bit ghoulish.
What do you make of that vision there and what they're trying to say militarily here?
Yeah, so by parading that missile, Sarah, what they're doing is they're saying, we've got stuff. And, you know, as Beth was mentioning, they still have cards. And that ballistic missile, you know, of a type that, you know, we haven't quite assessed yet, is, you know, a potential weapon that they can use. And they can use it potentially for long-range activities. You know, are they going to go after Israel again? Are they going to go after U.S. targets in the Middle East or beyond? Are they going to go after European targets? targets. All those things are possible, and what the Iranians are saying with this is that they have demonstrated capabilities, and it is kind of in line with what the director of the DIA mentioned in his testimony recently, which was that about half of Iran's launching capabilities, missile launch capabilities, and the actual missiles themselves are still in existence. So that is something that where you talk about destruction, that hasn't directly happened. It has happened in a lot of, when it comes to a large portion of their arsenal, but it has not happened in terms of the totality of that arsenal. So they still have something that they can play with here.
Joining us right now is Republican Congressman Marlin Stutzman of Indiana for much more on this. Let's talk about, Congressman, thanks for coming in. Iran now saying that they want the United States to end this blockade on Iranian ports, and then they'll start talks back up. Do you think the president should lift the blockade? What should be his next move?
No, he definitely should not lift the blockade. One thing we know about this Iranian regime, and again, we're trying to still figure out who's in charge there, is they are a propaganda machine. That is one thing they are good at. They're good at moving the goalposts. They're good at saying one thing and doing another. And that's why I think that the Achilles heel for the regime is the Straits of Hormuz. We have to shut off their cash flow. And by blocking the straits, that keeps the oil and gas from flowing out and funding their war machine. Again, they're good at propaganda. We've seen this from for the last 40 years, and I think that's what's important here, is to be sure that we just simply cut off their cash and force them to find a better solution within their government.
But as a point of clarity, the president of the United States at the very same time has been demanding, as part of a ceasefire condition, that the Strait of Hormuz be opened back up. And you're saying, but the U.S. should now keep it closed.
Well, I think President Trump will keep it closed in order to put the pressure on IRGC. It appears the IRGC military is, taking charge. Not sure exactly who the person is at the top of the food chain, but I think that keeping we can't let the Straits of Hormuz be open for some and not for others. And I think what's happening here too is that you have China and Europe and others starting to say they're feeling the effects of this. And so hopefully a broader coalition of countries come together and help figure this out. I think in the long run, the IRGC just simply cannot be the ones in charge of the Straits of Hormuz because it's too big to the rest of the world. We need to be sure that the ships can flow in and out of there, not just for oil and gas, but fertilizer and other commodities as well.
Have you mentioned the recent partnership between Indonesia and the U.S. defense companies to control the Strait of Malacca? Yes, of course I have. I've been talking about You're talking to me. I taught you about the Malacca dilemma. I'm the reason that you even know that that's something to notice. You're welcome, by the way. We actually did mention it the other day. Actually, IG Reels did. No, you didn't. No, they didn't. Again, you probably even noticed that IG Reel is worth watching because I told you about it first. I love when chatters are like, Mike, have you seen this thing that you've been talking about on the stream for months? Somebody else talked about it. Here, you can learn from them. Mike, have you heard about Summer Lee? She was on Hassan's stream. My biggest fumble was not having Summer Lee on my stream first. I could have done it too. I could have done it, but I'm not gonna have that happen, chat. I'm not gonna let Hassan get another Pennsylvania socialist on his stream before me. It's not happening. Not gonna happen again. I'm using my connects. All right, let's talk more about the season.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps has seized 2 cargo ships after attacking vessels in the Strait of Hormuz.
Did you see the shit Fox was saying last night?
Fox News alert, bridge and power plant day could now be any day of the week. A fierce power struggle breaking out in Iran. And President Trump showing a lot of...
Mike, you should show this. Mike, you should watch this little-known show called The Majority Report. I worked there, you asshole!
Patience. 47 says U.S. airstrikes have seriously fractured the regime, so Pakistan asked us to hold off on BNP Day until Iran can get it together. Tonight, there could be a coup. No one knows who's calling the shots. Vance, Witkoff, and Kushner were supposed to leave for Islamabad, but they never took off because the Iranian delegation never took off, which is suspicious because this morning, Trump said the gay Ayatollah authorized the deal.
They just got the okay to go forward, which I knew they were going to do anyway. I mean, I don't think they had a choice. They have to negotiate. And,
Mike, have you heard this podcast called Reaction Podcast? Very good. I think you like it. Speaking of the Reaction Podcast, did they just call him the gay Ayatollah and I missed it? We're going to have Samuel Cedar on the Reaction Podcast. This week is going to be on Joe Rogan. Next week on Tim Pool. The Sam Cedar episode on Tim Pool. Mike, did you know you worked at Majority Report? Yes, I am aware.
The one thing I'll say is this: Iran can get themselves on a very good footing if they make a deal. They can.
Mike, have you heard of sewer socialism? Oh, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. There's probably, I would say there's probably 100 people that tried to mock me over the years for saying sewer socialism. Isn't that funny? And then Zohran Mamdani comes out and just tweets it out.
Themselves into a strong nation again, a wonderful nation again. They have incredible people, but they seem to be, bloodthirsty.
So the gay Ayatollah told his ministers wheels up, but the military said not so fast. We're basically looking at another Iranian hostage crisis. This time they've taken themselves hostage, and therefore the negotiation. The IRGC won't agree to sign over the Strait and the uranium, and they're the only votes that matter because they're the ones with the guns.
That's right. That's why bombing them from the air is not a strategy that's going to cause regime change, because it never has. You need to have ground forces. So, of course, it's not to say that air power isn't important. It isn't. It's an extremely important support, but you need to have some sort of coherent ground force, and we don't.
The generals are demanding Trump lift the blockade as a precondition for more peace talks. They want to play an economic game of chicken.
Iran sees this as a game of endurance. They believe that time is on their side and that ultimately the domestic pressure when it comes to energy markets and the stock market will force President Trump to make a deal that's in their favor. That is not the truth. That is not the reality. The president and his counterparts in Israel have the ability to continue this operation for months if they need to.
It's the Iranians up against the clock. The blockade's already cost them over $1 billion. Checks are bouncing, and their economy's in a death spiral and facing a Great Depression. Scott Bessent says, quote, in a matter of days, Karg Island storage will be full, and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in. The blockades turned around 28 ships sailing to or from Iranian ports, most of them oil tankers. And we took custody of a runner sailing in from China with missile ingredients.
We caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it which wasn't very nice. A gift from China, perhaps. I don't know. But I was a little surprised, but because I have a very good relationship, and I thought I had an understanding with President Xi, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right?
And
they're not going to be able to stop weapons from flowing into Iran. They're not going to be able to stop it. Either it'll come across the Black Sea or it'll come from one of the stands. They're not going to be able to stop it. Even if they choke off the entire coast, they're not going to be able to stop it. Why isn't China breaking the blockade? Why isn't China plunging the world into world war? It's also the Gulf is far enough from China's coast that it would be quite risky. Hassan interview with the New York Times just dropped. The rich don't play by the rules, so why should I?
But I didn't feel.
Here. By the way, chat. Now that there's another pro Hassan piece, before we even dive into it, I saw something that has to do with Ethan Klein, and we're just watching this because I want everybody on Ethan Klein's show to know that they're pathetic losers, and it's so funny. I think AB may be my favorite lol cow of all time. AB, aka Absent Backbone, partner with Poop Cleana. May be the most cucked man. I mean, can you imagine being dominated by Ethan Klein? I mean, it's absolutely insane. It's so funny. Like, he has to use lawyers to try to intimidate women, and yet AB's bending over onto his knees for Ethan Klein. That's incredible. Listen to this.
So he claims to have more paying members, Love. Is that true?
I don't know.
Is that public? How many members people have?
Right. How would you know?
Yeah.
Me and Love, ours are public.
Oh.
Oh, so so you do know, Love? Why you lied to me?
I know what I have. I don't know what AB has.
What are you at?
Around 1,000. Yeah.
What are you at?
Around 2,000.
So he has double.
I'm sorry. That's kind of.
God, they're so fucking lame. Also, can I just say this? Ethan Klein. None of these people own their own home, by the way. Some of them have been working on his show for like a decade. I don't think any of the crew own their own home. Meanwhile, Ethan Klein has his Rolex collection that he brings onto the stream in his $10 million or $5 million, whatever the fuck it is, Bel Air mansion. Imagine being as greedy as Ethan Klein. Imagine spending time with people every fucking day and not even getting them like a 2-bedroom craftsman. You know what I mean? Like, god damn, what a fucking greedy piece of shit. What a douchebag.
Twitch. No, I'm at 17 on YouTube. Sorry.
Now, you guys realize those are potential memberships to our channel here.
Bro, come on, man. I'm trying to fight anti-Semitism. Come on. I'm trying to fight anti-Semitism. I abhor anti-Semitism.
So he claims to have more paying members, Love. Is that true?
I don't know.
Is that public? How many members people have?
Right, how would you know? Me and Love, ours are public.
Oh.
Oh, so what do you? So you do know, Love? Why you lied to me?
I know what I have. I don't know what AB has.
What are you at?
Around 1,000, yeah.
What are you at?
Around 2,000.
So he has double.
I'm sorry, that's counting Twitch. No, I'm at 17 on YouTube. Sorry.
Now you guys realize those are potential memberships to our channel here that you're siphoning off.
Which is why we need to stick together.
Okay. Just saying. You know, I'm the one here.
Wow, guys. I can't believe this stream is falling off. I can't believe this greedy Zionist bullying his crew. I can't believe people don't want to watch this shit. Sponsored by Dan Saltzman's. Hey, do you want to cover up your DMs company? I wonder why you would want to do that.
With territory to defend.
Well, I didn't stream on YouTube for years.
And then what happened?
Love went live. I mean, Love went live on YouTube. I was like, oh, this is
so
cool.
Love went there, and then you said, you know what? I'm also going to steal money out of the coffers.
Well, I asked you,
of my
said,
business.
I asked you first, and you said, yeah, it's cool. So,
okay, that's a good defense.
They stream like for 2 hours at a time, like a couple times a week. And they're like, you may not use this website. You may not use the website in between my 2-hour streams where I lazily stare at my phone. Fucking dipshit.
That's a decent defense.
Defense. AB, you may be the most cucked man on the planet. And from Ethan Klein, too. God damn it, dude. Oh, my God. Can you imagine if Hassan went to me, Mike, I can't believe you're streaming on Twitch. And I stream at the same time as Hassan. Oh, can you imagine? Oh my God. Holy fuck. That's so funny. That's crazy. I love it, dude. I love it. There's really nothing else to say other than AB. They look so scared too. For their 1,000 members. Their 1,000 members. This guy has a Rolex collection and he's greedily like going, I want your 1,000 members. I want your $3,000 a month. I could buy another Rolex every 10 months. How did he become famous? He stole a joke and made a very shitty video called Vape Nation, which was basically stealing other people's work on the culture surrounding vapes and weed. And then he got sued by somebody for making fun of their video, reacting to their video. And he did this like whining, like, I stand up for fair use in the First Amendment. Help me, Reddit. Help me. Oh, please help me, Reddit. And now he's suing a bunch of people for reacting to his videos and making fun of him. So he's a thief and a hypocrite. And honestly, why do people still watch him? Inertia. They're too dim to find anything else that's actually entertaining. Maybe they spent a few $100s on the trash clothes from Teddy Fresh. Also, unearned connections. I mean, and because he was like an early big YouTuber, he got a lot of connections to mainstream celebrities. And so, you know, that boosted his platform because people went to watch those celebrities on his show. I think he's about to lose his case to Dems, which will be very funny. We should honest to God cover that because Dems put out like a clip and I've been kind of like not giving them much attention because why would I? They're fucking irrelevant and there's more important things going on. But you know, Dems is facing that lawsuit. It's pretty disgusting. Google Trends for Teddy Fresh seem good. I feel so out of the loop. I mean, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? They're all. He also gloms onto more talented people and chases them all away. Hassan, Trisha, Post Malone, Oliver Tree. So many people noped out of his bullshit. God, he's so stupid, man. It's really incredible. You should cover it. Oh, this is me, by the way. Stop saying no to me. AI brain rot hits New York's federal courts. We'll have to check that out, Alyssa. Don't worry. Don't worry. We will. I'm sorry for taking this aside, chat, on internet, laughing at my enemies who are pathetic fucking losers. It would be almost funny if Ethan sued me, because I would just call up my my umbrella insurance provider or whatever and just be like, it wouldn't cost me a dime. Incredible idiot. Did you see this story of a med student in India scamming MAGA? I did see that.
Tasnim news agency says
Have we covered the
Navy
Virginia news yet? No.
Has seized the Epaminondas and the MSC Francesca off the Iranian coast near Siddiq. Iran accuses the vessels of operating without authorization and manipulating navigation systems.
These vessels have been transferred to the territorial waters of the Islamic Republic of Iran for inspection of their cargo and documents. The IRGC Navy once again emphasized that any action aimed at disrupting the implementation of the laws announced by the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding transit in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as activities contrary to safe passage in this strategic waterway, will be continuously monitored by the IRGC Navy, and violators will face decisive and lawful action.
Meanwhile, the ceasefire has been extended despite stalled efforts to reach a peace deal between the U.S. and Iran. President Donald Trump says Pakistan asked the U.S. to hold off on attacking Iran so Iranian leaders can submit a unified proposal. Now, Iran's ambassador to the UN says talks will resume as soon as the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports ends. But Washington has said the naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz will continue until a peace deal is done. Now, we've got correspondents at the White House, in Islamabad, in Dubai, and in Tehran. We're going to start with Ali Hashim in the Iranian capital. So, Ali, the ceasefire is extended, but Iran seizes 2 ships. What are the messages coming from Iran?
Well, the ceasefire is one thing for the Iranians, and the blockade is another. And they've vowed yesterday that they are going to continue and resume the work on defending the strait, the closure of the strait, as they're doing from their own side, and the other side trying to confront the blockade. And given the fact that today's incident took place, it's clear that this is part of the new status quo in the seas surrounding the Gulf and the Arab region, tit for tat. That will, of course, I mean, this is coming just after days from the United States seizing of an Iranian ship. So now we're seeing the Iranians seizing another 2 ships. So this is going to continue as far as the blockade is there, and as far as the Strait of Hormuz is closed also.
Ali, thanks a lot. We're going to bring in Mike Hanna at the White House. So Donald Trump, Mike, saying that the U.S. is going to still blockade the Strait of Hormuz. It's now waiting for Iran to come back with what's been described as a unified response. What are you hearing from the White House?
Well, President Trump made clear that he believes the blockade is still an important piece of leverage for him. He did so in a Truth Social statement in the course of yesterday evening. He says Iran doesn't want the Strait of Hormuz closed. They want it open so they can make $500 million a day. He wrote, they only say they want it closed because I have it totally blockaded. So they merely want to save face. Now, a few days ago, President Trump was saying that the Strait of Hormuz doesn't matter because the U.S. doesn't rely on it for oil. However, now it's obviously a central part of his policy and a central part of attempting to show that the U.S. has not backed down in terms of extending this particular ceasefire. There's something that is very important for President Trump to continue to appear to show strength in the face of what is amounting to Iranian defiance of his wishes to get the talks going again. Also a problem for the Trump administration, several sources are saying, is the fact that they're not quite clear who they are talking with in Iran, who are the decision makers. The main negotiator was assassinated by the Israelis, Ali Larijani. The supreme leader, the former one, was assassinated in the early part of the war. Now the U.S. government appears to be left with the Islamic Republican Guard Corps to negotiate with, notoriously hardline, and the previous leaders who have been killed were in fact guardrails against the complete power of the ICRG.
Okay, let's go back to Ali Hashem, who's still in Tehran for us, of course. So Donald Trump had previously said that the U.S. was negotiating with people that he described as reasonable, but we understand now he's saying it's because part of the problem is that Iran's leadership is fractured. Do we have any indication who is providing the responses to the U.S. right now?
Well, you know, when you are in Tehran, the view is different, especially when you are watching how the system is working in Tehran. It's completely different from what is being said. I mean, the issue is that there is a system, there is a leadership, there are institutions, there is a foreign ministry. These are all part of the decision-making cycle in Iran. And nothing has changed when it comes to how things work in this. There's a workflow. Now, the killing of the Supreme Leader, the killing of the Supreme National Security Council Secretary, other people who are in charge, wasn't left without being replaced. So there's no vacuum. And when there's
I mean, listen, when you kill like, you know, preeminent leaders, that does result in changes because, as I've said before, every leader has their own individual level of, you know, credibility with the people that they're supposed to be leading. So yes, the institutions, you know, and the place, you know, there is someone to stick in and replace anyone who's killed, but you can't. I don't think we should underestimate the costs of you know, widespread assassination as a policy. And, you know, can you imagine the MAGA movement if Trump was not alive? Like, say that Trump had one too many Big Macs last night and died of natural causes, right? What do you think would happen to the MAGA movement under J.D. Vance? I don't think we should dismiss the idea that, you know, assassinations are incredibly damaging. They are. But the Iranian state is not going to fall from that alone.
Vacuum.
I mean, it's like, look at Turning Point USA without Charlie Kirk. No one's carrying the flame except Hassan Piker.
Continues as it used to be. However, there's something, yes, different.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to meet Abdul El Sayed today when he's filming with my aunt later. Anything you think I should ask him? Say, answer Mike's DM. What the fuck? He's, you know, you messaged him first. Answer Mike's DM. But you ghosted him. I kind of did. That's my own ADHD ass fault. Before I was able to cope that I didn't have ADHD because I was always able to kind of like pull myself out of it by cram studying and all-nighters and just doing things on the fly. I was always able to like be at the top of my class. You know what I mean? Just from doing that shit. And I'm realizing, no, I need to actually be organized and professional and better. I'm old as fuck. I need to be better. Oh, you did to grow up getting pumped full of Ritalin and Adderall? My parents would never give me anything like that. When you have the like highest grades, you know, it covers up everything. You know, if you pass all the tests and have all the highest grades and write the best papers, it doesn't even matter if they were written. You know what I mean? And I don't say that because I'm trying to like brag or whatever. I think it's cringe. I don't think it matters at all. School, like who thinks doing well in high school is important? It's not. It's baby tier information. It's not that important. In fact, I think the fact that I was able to do well without working that hard is bad. I wish I had been challenged more and forced to learn how to develop those coping mechanisms earlier in life. Did you see my Discord DM with the contact info for the National DSA Comms Director who's interested in talking with me? Oh, I'm pretty sure we already met, but I should, I'll look for that. Thank you. Message me again tomorrow if I don't respond. Anyway, let's keep going.
Now in Iran is that the team surrounding the Supreme Leader is very harmonized.
Who's Mark Levin again? Mark Levin is one of the world's most successful talk radio hosts, or one of America's most successful talk radio hosts. He's probably one of the more influential commentators for the right. If you don't know who Mark Levin is, well, then you're not really aware of the political commentary space. Which, why would you? Who gives a fuck? Like, why are you paying attention to, like, people that are evil dipshits? He's what I would call a Jewish supremacist. He's America's Jewish supremacist. And he's very popular for some reason among Fox News dads. It's very funny to me. They listen to a Jewish supremacist.
Actually, it's his own team for the past 15 years.
Mark Levin has motion. I mean, he has motion with, like, boomers and they're dying out. You know, talk radio is dying out, obviously, as the boomers die. But he definitely had motion.
And now, after they've worked in the shadows for all that time, now they are in charge. So we see Mohammed Baqir Dhul Qadr being the Supreme National Security Council. The commanders in the IRGC, for example, Ahmed Wahidi or Aziz Jafari or his assistant Hussein Taib or Mohammed Baqir Qaliba. These are all people who were the men around the new Supreme.
Oil is up another $2 since this interview. Brent oil rises above $100 after Iran seizes container ships. U.S. maintains naval blockade. Oh, is it getting worse? I thought we were about to have a peace deal. What happened? Why is the stock market ignoring this? What is going on?
Leader when he wasn't the supreme leader. So the decision making is smooth among them. And
the Democrats just crossed the Rubicon twice, which has never been done before. Mark Levin's funniest quote. Mark Levin is one of those people who he's like the original, never read anything but references it anyway guy. And that's a very common guy, and it makes me laugh every time. He's kind of like the original Encyclopedia Andy, or like maybe you glance at an encyclopedia before referencing it.
It's supposed that the Supreme National Security Council and the Foreign
Mark
Ministry
Levin wasn't beaten enough as a child. I don't think corporal punishment is good for kids. I agree completely.
So I hope any potential Democrats who could be the next president are watching this right now, and you guys understand that's literally mission number one is arrest the Trump regime criminals and purge this motherfucker's name off absolutely everything. I don't even want to see his name on the buildings that he owns. I think we should strip the entire family of all of their wealth. I think
definitely.
We should liquidate.
They should have to pay restitution for all the people they scammed with their shit coins and rug pulls.
All their shit. This is a fucking, it's not a family. It's a criminal syndicate. It's a fucking cartel. And they commit crimes on literally a daily basis. But this psycho was trying to give himself or considering giving himself the Medal of Honor. So I hope any potential Democrats who could be the next president are watching this right now. And you guys understand that's literally mission number one is arrest the Trump regime criminals and purge this motherfucker's name off absolutely everything. I don't even want to see his name on the buildings that he owns. I think we should strip the entire family of all of their wealth. I think we should liquidate all their shit. This is a fucking, it's not a family. It's a criminal syndicate. It's a fucking cartel. And they commit crimes on literally a daily basis. But this psycho was trying to give himself or considering giving himself the Medal of Honor. So I hope any potential Democrats who could be the next president are watching this right now. And
I mean, the idea of Trump giving himself the Medal of Honor is like one of those things where it's so much of the like ceremony and solemnity and belief and social structures we have are thoroughly and completely invented, right? But part of that invention involves practicing certain forms, right? And like the Medal of Honor is just a meaningless piece of sky blue cloth and a stamped piece of metal, right? But we only give it to people that have done extraordinary actions in combat, right? Most of the time they die. And so it gets value because it is only handed out sparingly and rarely to people who have attested great feats of courage. You know what I mean? So Donald Trump basically strips the Medal of Honor of all meaning I get by, you know, these kind of conversations. So by giving it to himself, it's no longer a Medal of Honor. It is an embarrassment. So by giving it to himself, he ruins it of any value. That's what's so funny about him. He's so dumb. He's such a dumb piece of shit that he thinks that the Medal of Honor has value because of the name Medal of Honor. It has value because we don't give it to people that often. It is their acts that get it value. God, he's such a fucking dipshit. And understanding this stuff it's just kind of goes without saying. It's something that we all intuitively understand. We don't even have to explain. But Donald Trump is too dumb to understand it because he would understand that by giving it to himself, he's making himself a mockery. He's not aggrandizing himself. He's demonstrating that he's a fucking dipshit. He looks dumb. It's embarrassing. I mean, I guess if his goal is to like destroy the US, it's what you would do. I mean, if you're trying to make America a joke, JD Pandon, JD Pandon evidence in.
The ones conveying the answers. So other than that, there are no signs that there is a fractured leadership here in Tehran.
Ali Hashem, live for us there in Tehran. Thanks, Ali. We're going to go back to Mike Hanna at the White House. Mike, just before we do, I just want to point out our viewers to the top right-hand corner of the screen there. That is the current price of Brent crude at the moment. It's sitting over $100 a barrel. It's been moving between 10 and it was up to about 19. At one point, you can see the figure ticking up and down there. This is an indication, of course, the kind of level of uncertainty that the world has with regard to, even though we have a ceasefire extension, there is speculation that talks may be carrying on, and nevertheless there is this uncertainty which is being reflected, at least in part, by the energy prices. Now, in terms of domestic politics, how long do you think Donald Trump can continue all of this? What are analysts telling you from the States?
Well, the oil price is certainly felt by Americans at the gas stations, but it goes far further than that. Diesel plays an important part in the transportation of everyday goods, and the price of those goods are rising incrementally as this war continues. It's a deeply unpopular war within the United States, and the polls indicate that President Trump's own personal standing is the lowest it has ever been, and probably the lowest of any president. One poll puts him at 30% favorable rate. So it is having a dramatic political impact on the United States and on the Trump administration. But further than that, there are, of course, midterm elections in November. President Trump has been looking forward to that. He has been on his campaign trail already, even during this conflict. And this could have a massive and dramatic effect at those November voting to the detriment of President Trump and his Republican Party. So he wants out of here. Very clearly, he has extended the ceasefire because he does not want to go back to war again, because that would lead to a renewing of the war and an extension of it. So he is looking for an off-ramp. All indicators, all analysts believe that this is the case, and he wants one. But how is he going to get it? Well, that is the question, because none of those around him, he spent the day sitting with his National Security Council yesterday, none of those around him appear to be certain as to what course he should take. They are leaving it up to him. They did not know going into that meeting yesterday what President Trump was going to do at the end of it, whether he was going to go to war again or declare an extension of the ceasefire. So it's a very, very shadowy, shady, difficult situation, and the popular effect is deeply damaging to the Trump administration.
It's Mike Hanna at the White House. Mike, thanks very much indeed.
We live in like the dumbest possible timeline. We live in the dumbest possible timeline. I don't know how to otherwise explain it. We're at war with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. There's no prospect for peace. And the stock market is like, yep, we're going to sign a peace treaty tomorrow. Yay. We're signing a peace treaty tomorrow. Yay. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. There are now oil shortages happening in Asia, and rich countries are starting to stockpile oil by preventing it from being sent to poor countries at all. So basically, all of the countries that are nominally aligned with the United States, so countries like the Philippines or Indonesia or what's a good example of like a developing country that's not an oil producer that's nominally aligned with the U.S.? Argentina? Bangladesh? In economics textbooks, higher energy prices from war in the Middle East display the power of markets to officially decide who gets what. Yet in the real world, a cruder sort of power appears at work. Oh, you don't say! Oh, you don't say! It's not being sold fairly to the poor countries? Oh, you're right. You want to keep oil prices down? You just simply remove the demand from the poor countries. They're not allowed to bid. The conflict has severely constricted the supply of oil for the Persian Gulf. Countries with the financial means, China, Japan, Europe, the United States, are securing much of what they need, paying whatever it takes. Some are restricting exports to hold on to what they have. This has pushed prices higher everywhere. At the same time, shortages threaten less affluent nations in Asia, sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. Some economists are describing this as hoarding. The market is not some harmonious allocating mechanism, but ends up being the law of the jungle, says Isabella Weber. Isabella Weber is one of the smartest people in the world. Read all of her books. An economist at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Rationing by price explosion ends up being fundamentally unjust. Not for the first time, the world is reckoning with the reality that fear of scarcity can become self-fulfilling. Increased prices for critical commodities like oil and natural gas are amplified by a feedback loop of alarm and feverish buying as national governments understandably seek to protect their economies from running out of vital goods. Their purchasing affirms the impetus for others to lock up supply. Truth has been illustrated over decades by shocks to the world's food supply. A similar story played out during COVID-19 as nations banned exports of protective gear and competed for limited doses of life-saving vaccines. Now the same dynamic appears to be driving up prices for energy around the globe, yielding shortages of cooking gas in India and jet fuel in Southeast Asia. Now, oil prices are only $100 a barrel for some reason. Yet there's shortages in Southeast Asia. It was this expensive a few months ago. Excuse me, a couple years ago it was this expensive. Why are there suddenly shortages? Huh? Why do we suddenly have shortages? Well, because, ladies and gentlemen, they're not even letting them bid. Once again, a large unanticipated shock hits the world economy, and it's every country for itself, says Eswar Prasad, an international trade expert at Cornell University. You don't say! Globalization isn't fair? This is not the world in it together and trying to sort out the problem jointly. Every country is going into survival mode. Last week, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and International Energy Agency jointly exhorted countries not to hoard stocks of energy or ban exports, warning that such measures would worsen the situation for the globe. Do no harm, urged the IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, as her institution downgraded its forecast for global economic growth. The IMF says do no harm. Why are you, DM Verse, why are you looking up JD Pond? Why are you going to AI and asking what I mean by JD Pondon? Alice third worldism is my favorite. I'm more of a bad empanada-ist, which is I, and a white Australian man, will live as a digital nomad in the third world and be paid in dollars to make posturing videos for Americans and Canadians where they distance themselves morally from their own empire. And I will pay like Argentinian proletarians poverty wages and enjoy a luxurious lifestyle. I will spend my entire day talking about Hassan Piker and Mike from PA. I like Passadism. It has nukes and dolphins. Oh, true. Ass point, bro. Yeah, exactly. That admonition came after China and Thailand halted exports of jet fuel, seeking to ensure adequate stocks at home. China, don't ban exports, China. Come on, China, let your economy crash. Come on, China. You built all those stockpiles 5 months ago because you recognized the United States was a warmongering psycho country. Come on, let us have your stockpiles for cheap. Come on, China, that's not fair. In case you're wondering, China builds oil stockpile. Oh, here it is. Why China can withstand oil surge past $100 more easily than other countries. Surging oil prices following the Iran war expected to impact China less than the past years as the country's built large crude stockpiles and diversified its energy sources, including renewables. As oil prices climbed past $100 per a barrel for the first time in 4 years, OCBC analysts said China may be less sensitive to prolonged exposure to the Strait of Hormuz than many of its Asian peers. God damn it, how come these communists keep figuring out what's gonna happen and then doing things to fix it? China has accumulated one of the world's largest strategic and commercial crude reserves, the analyst said, adding that its rapid transition toward electric vehicles and renewable energy provides an additional structural hedge. China held an estimated 1.2 billion barrels of onshore crude stockpiles as of January. That's about 3 to 4 months of reserves. China has taken the last 20 years to reduce some of its dependence on maritime oil flows, Dashi said, noting that the new overland oil pipelines and some diversification to renewables mean the country now only relies on the Strait of Hormuz for 40 to 50% of its seaborne oil imports. By 2030, China aims to increase the share of non-fossil fuels in total energy consumption to 25%, up from 21.7% in 2025. China wants to be completely net zero by 2060, and they're ahead of their goals by 5 years. The strait connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and global shipping route. So China has gone like, damn, oil is really bad for you. We should like try to reduce our flows. And, ooh, America's kind of crazy. We should store a bunch of oil to protect our economy. Now, the New York Times is here to tell you that they're doing hoarding. Guys, it was hoarding to buy oil when it was cheap in January, because the United States was threatening the world. That's hoarding. Major airlines in Europe have warned about the risk of running low on fuel. Lufthansa, which is Germany's airline, cited the doubling of prices and said on Tuesday that it would cut 20,000 flights through October. Europe depends on Persian Gulf suppliers for 3/4 of its jet fuel, with the bulk coming through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow channel at the center of hostilities between the United States and Iran. The Chinese government, long concerned about reliance on energy from the Middle East, has in recent years added to its vast stockpiles of oil and natural gas. China has also become the world's leader in drawing electricity from renewable sources of energy like solar and wind. Still, China buys 13% of its oil from Iran, making the war a source of grave concern in Beijing. Since the United States and Israel launched the war at the end of February, China has sought to replace oil shipments blocked by the conflict with increased purchases from Russia and Brazil. That is no simple exercise. Overall, China's crude oil imports have dipped about 10% this year compared to 2025. China's unrivaled capacity to store oil greatly diminishes the threat of running out. Smaller economies lack capacity, putting them at a pronounced disadvantage. So basically, all the countries who align with the United States are being fucked. Europe, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, they're all getting fucked. They're all getting fucked. Everybody that aligns with the United States is getting absolutely dog-walked, betrayed, fucked over for Israel. So it's not just the United States of Israel, it's the United Europe of Israel. It's the United Southeast Asia of Israel. The entire world is subjected to the 6 million Israeli warmongering freaks. 8 billion people are less than the 6 million in Israel. That's crazy. The Philippines, which imports 90% of its oil from the Persian Gulf, last month declared a national emergency in the face of spiking gasoline prices. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who is the son of the American-backed dictator, has sought to ease the strain by handing out subsidies to drivers of motor-sized tricycles and jeepneys, a popular form of transportation, but that has not assuaged the anger of drivers who have staged strikes. The government has also halted collections of fuel taxes on liquefied petroleum gas, a major source of cooking fuel in urban areas. So the Philippines is dependent upon the oil and gas industry and America, and they're getting fucked. In India, which also relies heavily on liquefied petroleum gas for cooking, authorities have been raiding businesses accused of hoarding canisters, exacerbating shortages. In the United States, President Trump has sought to limit economic disruptions from this war by releasing millions of barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Japan has pursued a similar approach. European importers of energy, especially vulnerable to turmoil in the Persian Gulf, have been pushing world prices higher by outbidding distressed rivals in Asia for jet fuel and other products. Some see the skewed availability of energy as a rebuke of economic dogma that has propelled globalization since the end of World War II. The idea that a greater trade yields stability by expanding access to vital goods. The post-World War II framework was based on this idea that boundaries don't matter, said Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel laureate economist at Columbia. There is a global price for everything, but once you have national hoarding, that is no longer true. Borders matter. More than half a century ago, in 1972, drought ravaged rice crops in much of Southeast Asia, threatening a staple food for tens of millions of people. The next year, Thailand, the world's largest exporter of rice, banned foreign sales to ensure adequate stocks at home. By early 1974, rice prices had risen fourfold on world markets. Wealthy importers like Japan and Britain paid more for rice. China cut back its exports to prioritize its own people, but Bangladesh and India, both dependent on imports and both lacking in foreign exchange reserves, struggled to feed their populations. Okay, this is more shortages in the past where borders mattered. Even the chemicals that went into the vaccines they hoarded, Stiglitz, the economist, that interrupted the supply chain and made it more difficult to produce some of the vaccines. It was destructive, but everybody said, we don't know what we're going to need. A similar dynamic determined which countries gained access to COVID vaccines. By the middle of 2021, 3/4 of the people who had received the vaccines lived in just 10 countries: the United States, Britain, Germany, and France. Only 5% of the human population had received a single dose of the vaccine. Pfizer, the American pharmaceutical giant, developed a leading COVID vaccine. The company promised to contribute 40 million doses at not-for-profit prices COVAX, an initiative aimed at ensuring that poor countries would gain protection. That volume was less than 1% of the 11 billion doses that were estimated to be needed to ensure that 70% of the world's population was covered. And by the middle of 2021, as Pfizer logged big profits for the sale of its vaccines to the highest bidder, the company had delivered only 1.25 million doses to COVAX, less than it had produced in a single day. The consequences of leaving much of the world beyond the reach of vaccines represented a collective vulnerability. The energy shocks are similar universal. Hoarding lifts market prices everywhere, yet which countries manage to secure ample stocks is a tale of inequality. Rich countries outbid poor countries, said Ms. Wepper. Rich people ensure their luxury consumption while the majority of people get squeezed. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the conditions of the world right now. And, you know, obviously, the United States has managed to avoid suffering the consequences of our own actions in Iran. But that's not going to last forever, folks. Eventually, if the Iranians hold the blockade long enough, the United States of America is going to start paying consequences, and the world markets are going to start to pay consequences. All right, chat, I wanted to talk about a couple other things. Sounds like I should buy oil futures. I don't know what you should do, man. All right, be right back.
Trouble in paradise? Those are the reports coming out of Washington today as fractures seem to be emerging in the GOP between the Republicans' pro-pedophilia wing and the party's extremely pro-pedophilia wing. Infighting between the two pedophile coalitions reaching new levels of intensity in recent weeks, leaving GOP leadership to question how best to handle the future of their party's sexual attraction to minors. ONN's Jason Copeland joins us now from Washington with the latest. Jason, you've been in close contact with Republican insiders. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Dwight, well, this is really a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, plain and simple. You know, the GOP has historically welcomed a wide net from pederasts to ephebophiles, and there's always been, you know, sort of moderate support for sexual attraction to children, but many in the base are now asking for a more full-throated endorsement, and like you said, this is really about the party of pedophilia's future, and right now it's looking a little bit split.
And the split playing out very publicly on social media just yesterday, with Senator Tom Tillis replying pretty tepidly to the most recent Epstein Files revelations.
Yeah, that's right. He's publicly calling everything in the Epstein Files cool, which frankly, you know, to pro-pedophilia voters, this comes off as a pretty lukewarm endorsement of child sex trafficking.
Which just isn't going to cut it in the post-Trump era of Republican pedophiles. A new Gallup poll showed only 44% of Republican voters being in favor of pedophilia, with another 43% being very in favor of it.
Yeah, and that's really what we're talking about here, Dwight. You know, for the last 10 years, the entire party has been jockeying for who's going to succeed Donald Trump as the face of American pedophilia. And right now, Republicans are looking closely at some local elections for insight. And this centrist versus extreme dynamic is playing out in Republican primaries across the country. This is Utah State Senator incumbent Matt Riggs staking out the more moderate position.
Chat, listen, if you're an actor and somebody's like, hey, you want to work for an Onion video? And they're like, you're playing a senator, and you're like, okay, what's my, oh, cool, that sounds really fun. And then they show up and they're like, okay, you are pedophile Senator 1. You got to get out of there, man. You got to get out of there. It's not worth the bit. It's not worth the bit.
On child sex abuse.
I think my record speaks for itself. No one, and I do mean no one, was more upset than me the day Millie Bobby Brown turned 18. I am a staunch and committed pedophile.
Pretty boilerplate talking points.
Exactly. You know, it's a lot of the same old promises that many just aren't believing are going to resonate in exactly the same way anymore. And especially when you compare it alongside the more energized campaigns of some of the more charismatic sex criminals running, like Riggs' opponent Brock Granite, political outsider who fired back in a podcast appearance earlier this week.
Seducing underage boys and girls is a bedrock founding principle of the Republican Party. And it sickens me to see my opponent swoop in and try and steal valor from the real pedophiles on the ground. I looked it up. In the Epstein Files, this guy's name appears less than 300 times. It's performative pedophilia.
Now, Senator Riggs has already responded on X saying, quote, I enjoy molesting as much as the next red-blooded American pedophile. I just don't make it my whole campaign. We need to be responsive to kitchen table issues, or the only ones left at the table will be adults. Jason, these are strong words being said against fellow pedophile party members. Is there any sense they can find common ground?
Pedocon theory is not a theory. It's a fact. I was saying this to Hassan the other day, but one of the things that I fought for in Pennsylvania was extending the statute of limitations for the victims of child sexual abuse. And we had a major fight with the Republican Party. The Republicans were fighting super hard against it. Let me see if I could find some articles on it. I could type. Okay, so it was called Act 87. So we eventually succeeded. But in 2018, the Republicans were fighting against it.
Here and come together on this?
You know, not without strong pedophilic leadership at the top, Dwight. You know, some think J.D. Vance could be that, but others say he just looks like a pedophile more than acts like one. P. Diddy certainly could have been an interesting outside candidate. But the bottom line here, Dwight, is this is an identity crisis for a party that will eventually need to decide, are they going to push forward and continue to build upon the pedophilia of Trump? Or will they take the path of the Matt Gaetz moderates, go back to their roots and once again commit to being the grand old pedophiles of Reagan?
Will be interesting to see how it plays out. Thank you, Jason. In response to the infighting, Democratic leadership is looking to capitalize politically. Members of the House and Senate today held a joint press conference dressed as little children, stating, quote, "You can all be pedophiles if we can please have health care." Coming up next, Making America Healthy Again. More on RFK Jr.'s latest initiative to fill the Washington Monument reflecting pool with beef tallow. You've seen the news.
The onion is back, ladies and gentlemen. The onion is back. The onion is back. All right, I found an article, chat. GOP leader in Pennsylvania Senate cautions against retroactive sexual abuse claims. Top-ranking Republican in the Pennsylvania Senate responded Wednesday to a sweeping grand jury report on the sexual abuse of children by Roman Catholic clergy by saying he opposes legislation to retroactively loosen time limits on lawsuits by the victims. Senate President pro tempore Joe Scarnati said such a change would violate the state constitution, although he would support amending it. That is an extended process and has no absolute certainty. It is a change in state law that bishops have successfully fought in recent years, even as a handful of other states have opened such windows to let victims sue the church, raising the prospect of massive payouts. Instead, Scardetti said the church should set aside money to pay victims through a fund administered by a neutral third party to ensure fairness and objectivity. Now, there was a lot of Senate Republicans. State senator in PA caught with child sex abuse material. I'm linking this together, chat. Hold on. Oh, here it is. So his name, Pennsylvania State Senator, resigns after arrest on child porn charges. Pennsylvania State Senator has stepped down following his arrest on charges of possession of child pornography. State Senator Mike Fulmer submitted his letter of resignation on Wednesday to Republican colleagues in Harrisburg, according to leadership in the state chamber. We are sickened and disturbed by the charges brought against Mike Fulmer, the Pennsylvania lawmaker said in a statement. After reviewing the charges, speaking to Fulmer, they said they insisted that he resign. Now, if you look at Mike Fulmer, he was one of the main opponents to extending the statute of limitations for victims of child sexual abuse in Pennsylvania. Hold on, I'm trying to find this real quick. Sorry about that. Okay. Did you cover Sam Harris's racist rant? No, I didn't. Let me look this up, chat. I don't want to give you
a few comments here. I'm sorry, but Sam equating Mamdani to Trump is insane. He's infinitely more ethical than any person in the Republican Party. What do you have to say for yourself?
So apologies for one point of confusion there, which really is confusion. He's not the equivalent of Trump. He's a very different sort of character than Trump, right? But also one who we should want nothing to do with politically. I think he's a sinister figure. I think he's a none too closeted Islamist or at minimum apologist for.
There we go. I found it, chat. I found it. Here it is. Fulmer had been a member of the state Senate since 2007 and was reelected to a fourth term last year. He is considered one of the more conservative members of the legislature. Last year, he opposed a bill that would have made it easier for survivors of child sex abuse to sue their perpetrators by extending the statute of limitations. Fulmer opposed the effort to allow victims to sue predators decades after alleged abuse on constitutional ground. So, like, when we say pedocon theory, they're not only, like, they are literal pedophile Republicans fighting to prevent justice for victims of child sex abuse. That is the Republican Party. It's not a joke. It's a fact. And, I think being a Republican at this point, what could you even say? Okay, back to Sam Harris being extremely racist.
An apologist for Islamists than Trump, right? So apologies for one point of confusion there, which really is confusion. He's not the equivalent of Trump. He's a very different sort of character than Trump, right? But also one who we should want nothing to do with politically. I think he's a sinister figure. I think he's a none too closeted Islamist or at minimum an apologist for Islamists.
So basically, Sam Harris is fucking delusional, or he is a bald-faced Islamophobe racist, because Mamdani is not trying to impose any sort of Islamic law. It doesn't argue in favor of America being forced to convert to Islam, or Islamic law being preferentially treated, or trying to impose any kind of social mores of the conservative far-right Islamist view. He's not arguing in favor of giving aid or assistance to Islamic forces abroad. That's the conservative Republicans. They have a 50-year record, a 60-year record of funding the Islamists. Pro-Islamists is the Republican Party and the centrist Democrats that he loves. What the fuck are you talking about? Now, what Sam Harris is really saying is Mamdani supports the right of Palestinians to defend themselves from ethnic cleansing and genocide. And he thinks that Jewish Israelis should be able to ethnically cleanse, dominate, and have Sharia law in Israel. He is a supremacist.
He's not ethically sane by my lights at all, though he can seem to be somebody who really just cares about, people who are finding it hard to make ends meet in New York, right? But if you double click on many of his political allegiances and the kinds of things his wife likes on social media and all of that, what you get is a picture of someone who's captured by a fairly sinister theocratic agenda. And
by the way, even if you look at what she liked, it wasn't theocratic. It was far left pan-Arab terrorists. That's not theocratic. I mean, even if you said the most sussy thing she liked was PFLP feminists, like, this is not Islamism, unless anyone who's Muslim is Islamist, according to Sam Harris. He's just making shit up.
Anti-Semitic one. This is not about garbage trucks and, cleaning up Central Park and really helping the city. The thing that really seems to animate him are these political concerns that don't have a lot to do with being mayor.
So basically, he thinks that we should ignore a genocide going on. Like, these Sam Harris and all of these guys are such fucking worms. They're such pathetic fucking. And I gotta tell you, as somebody who personally abhors anti-Semitism and says it on a nearly daily basis, I get called an anti-Semite all the time. I mean, it is an absolute fucking joke. It's an absolute fucking joke. And I mean, people never, ever, ever refute my arguments. They try to label you as some sort of bigot. The far left is where the real bigots are, guys. They never deal with the arguments we're making on the merits. I'm desperate to get an argument on the merits. And I cannot find it. It's nonstop batting away accusations that are just completely made up bullshit. And it's absolutely just disgusting. I mean, there's not one citation of a specific instance or point. He just kind of hand waves in the direction of something and implies that it exists without actually, where's your firm sourcing, Sam? I thought you were a big researcher. What happened?
Have a lot to do with Israel and Islam. He's not the worst person you might find in that vein, but he's far too close to being a shill for Islamist theocrats than I would want running a major American city.
Which
to say
theocrat? Mike, when you yell, it sounds like Gene Wilder in the boat seat. Thank you. That is an extreme compliment. I love Gene Wilder.
Since Trump got elected, what's interesting to see is that things have gotten a lot messier and a lot more complicated all over the place. People can't as easily identify with a side. It's not left or right. Like, for example, Sam Harris, who's a liberal but critical of Islam, who runs a meditation app but also believes that Israel should just bomb anyone at any time that it thinks. It is hilarious to be a guy who runs a meditation app and he spends half the time telling people about breathing and how to self-actualize, and the other half of the time telling people that we need to bomb as many children as humanly possible until Israel feels comfortable. That's just an interesting archetype of person. I want you to breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. I want to start from your breath and start from your breathing. What we need to do is indiscriminately bomb women and children. We need to indiscriminately bomb women and children right now. Imagine you're a drone. Feel the freedom of being a drone. Where would you fly if you were a drone? Iran? I think you'd fly right to Iran. You'd fly to Iran and eliminate their nuclear capability. You'd do it before you even had the chance to find a diplomatic solution. I want you to breathe. I want you to breathe in and out right now. I want you to imagine an apartment complex. There's children playing soccer outside. Now it's gone. It's gone because there were bad people in it. Now they're all gone. Now it's rubble. And I know it's sad, but it's necessary. Collateral damage. I want you to say 2 words. Collateral damage. Focus on your breathing. Manifest the reality you want to see. Do people from Gaza still live there? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're gone. Where are they? We don't know. Focus on your breathing in and out. Since Trump got elected, what's interesting?
I mean, I got to say that this is complete and utter victory. This is complete and utter victory for the left. Is that being anti-Israel is now becoming such a widely accepted viewpoint that it's now decoupling from its position on the left. It's now just becoming conventional wisdom, which is what it always looks like when we win, by the way. As a leftist, I want you to understand something, that when we win, liberals and everybody rush to take the victory out of our hands and claim it for themselves. They'll fight you tooth and nail for decades, and then we get it, and then they will run to take the victory out of our hands and claim it for themselves, and then rewrite history. That's how it goes. Always goes. But when you see stuff like this, it's a sign of our impending victory. And I got to tell you, victory fucking tastes amazing. God.
Nothing of our government, right? So if we had a Mamdani character who was a viable presidential candidate who had these kinds of ties to obvious anti-Semites and Islamists.
Notice he says these kinds of ties instead of actually telling you who the anti-Semites are, what is the tie? Notice that he just does this like hand wavy bullshit because he's trying to create thought terminating cliches. He's trying to create, he's trying to put Mamdani into some sort of box. And let me tell you, it's not going to fucking work because people are starting to understand that if a fucking Zionist is attacking you, you're probably a good person. And this is a problem because sometimes Zionists do attack bad people, like, right? Sometimes that occasionally happens, like a Nazi, right? If a Zionist attacks a Nazi, like Nick Fuentes, that doesn't make Nick Fuentes good. But people are going to do the cognitive load balancing of using Zionist hates you, you're probably decent. And that's going to let a lot of scumbags get credit they shouldn't otherwise get because of people like Sam Harris and the way that they defame people. And it's like, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When they defame Hassan, when they attack Hassan and accuse him of being Nick Fuentes, all they're doing, they're not hurting Hassan. They're helping Nick. Because people will be like, well, I've seen Hassan Piker and he's a good man. I don't believe your lies. That Nick Fuentes guy must be decent. And they go and check him out because they know you're lying about Hassan. So when you compare Hassan to somebody like Nick, all you're doing is helping Nick.
And, Muslim Brotherhood adjacent evil, I would find that genuinely terrifying.
Muslim Brotherhood adjacent evil. Amazing. Here's quintessential moderate Dem Sam Harris going on a 2-minute screed about New York City Mayor Mamdani being a sinister victor, a non-too-closeted Islamist, not ethically sane, and a shill for Islamist theocrats. What a bitch-made loser. He's always been he's always been an Islamophobic bigot. I don't think that's an accident, Mike. You think people are trying to help Nick Fuentes through 3-dimensional chess of attacking Hassan? All right, chat. I want to show you a story that I can't believe is true. The Democrats did something right. The Democrats have achieved victory. The Democrats have done something that I would have done. I can't believe it.
Democrats and their allies poured $70 million into convincing Virginia voters to back their new redistricting map. The move could help them flip more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and maybe even take back control in November's midterm election. They even brought in former President Barack Obama to help win over Virginia voters.
you can push back against the Republicans trying to give themselves an unfair advantage in the midterms.
The Democrats' efforts paid off. With the new map, Democrats could end up with 10 congressional seats, leaving Republicans with just 1. Right now, Republicans have 5 seats, and Democrats hold 6. Former Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin says this new map is nothing more than a Democrat power grab.
It's illegal, and I think it's immoral what they're doing to try to basically...
Now, here's what I would say to you guys, is that anytime a Republican says that this is illegal or immoral, I think they should be arrested. I'm not memeing. I think anytime a Republican says this is illegal or immoral, they should go to prison. And the reason why I say that is because the Republican Party, I lived in the Republican Party gerrymander in Pennsylvania. I ran in a gerrymandered seat myself. They got rid of the section of my district that was the 3rd largest city in Pennsylvania and replaced it with exurbs. I had 3 counties in my district, and the Republicans were able to achieve total control of the Pennsylvania House, the Pennsylvania Senate. They had 13 members of Congress, and the Democrats had 3. They could have given the Democrats less because, you know, Philadelphia has the bluest district in the country. Pittsburgh is not, they can't gerrymander that. They can't divide up Philadelphia and Pittsburgh enough in order to hold those seats because it would be a dummy mander. So they gave as few seats as possible to the Republicans, and they did it for almost 20 years. Glenn Youngkin said fucking nothing. It's true in Ohio as well. It's true in Michigan as well. It's true in Florida as well. It's true in Texas as well. So any Republican complaining about this is a liar. And the reason why I think they should be imprisoned is because there were multiple efforts to prevent political gerrymandering. First, Democrat-linked lawyers sued to the Supreme Court to prevent the gerrymandering in Wisconsin. A gerrymander that was so bad that Wisconsin was not a democracy, right? Wisconsin was not a democracy. It was so bad. Wisconsin, Republican gerrymander, not a democracy. It was almost impossible. Why? Wisconsin is not a democracy. And the gerrymander was so bad that they got sued to the Supreme Court. And you know what the Supreme Court said? It's fine to gerrymander politically. They said it's fine. Was a United States Supreme Court case involving the constitutionality of partisan gerrymandering. Other forms of gerrymandering based on racial or ethnic grounds had been deemed unconstitutional, and while the Supreme Court had identified that extreme partisan gerrymandering could also be unconstitutional, the court had not agreed on how this could be defined, leaving the question to lower courts to decide. And then in Rucco versus Common Cause, the Supreme Court said partisan gerrymandering is a non-justicable political question outside the jurisdiction of courts. So they upheld the gerrymander. They say political gerrymandering is fine. Historically, North Carolina is seen to have a near equal split of voters between the Republican and Democratic parties, and the political parties, backed by wealthy donors on both sides, have fought over control of the state using gerrymandering for decades. Prior to 2011, 7 of the state's 13 districts favored Democrats, the rest Republican. The first gerrymandering map for North Carolina following the 2010 census was released in 2011, which resulted in 9 districts favoring Republicans. And so, I mean, look at this shit. This is a packed district of all the Democrats that they could fit into North Carolina. Look at this election in 2018. Democrats got 1.3 million votes and 52% of the vote, and they only got 36 seats. So they get 52% of the vote and they get a third of the seats. Despite winning a majority of ballots cast, the Democratic Party won only 36 seats, thus remaining a minority and gaining just 1 seat from the Republicans. Based on the results, Democrats would have to need to win a statewide popular vote margin of 20% to win a majority of seats. The gerrymandering is so extreme that there was no way to vote the Republicans out. And the U.S. Supreme Court said it was okay. So when somebody says to you, and this is true of state after state after state, it's why the Republicans were able to hold the House of Representatives after 2012. They gerrymandered the fuck out of everything. So when a Republican says, oh, it's illegal, oh, it's immoral, oh, it's whatever, I want you to understand that they were completely A-okay with this going on for over a decade, and they cheated as much as they could. And now the Democrats finally did something right and did it back. And now suddenly it's a problem. Now, The other thing is, Democrats have been fighting against gerrymandering. I want you to understand that this is not the first thing the Democrats tried to do. The first thing that the left and Democrats tried to do was make it illegal. They passed a law right after Biden came into power called the For the People Act, H.R. 1. It passed out of the House. It went to the Senate, where Republicans filibustered it. The Republicans filibustered it. In 2021, in the 117th Congress, congressional Democrats reintroduced the act as H.R. 1 and S1. On March 3rd, 2021, the bill passed the House of Representatives on a near party line vote, 2020 to 2010, advancing to the Senate, which was split 50-50 between Democrats and Republicans. On June 22nd, 2021, a vote on the bill was held in the Senate. It received unified support from the Democratic caucus, but Senate Republicans blocked the bill with a filibuster, as it lacked 60 votes needed to invoke cloture after the party line vote. Some Senate Democrats expressed support for abolishing the filibuster for the bill, but others on their caucus remained opposed or expressed reservations about doing so, including Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. So Democrats tried to pass a law. This is probably one of the best laws that was they tried to pass under Biden. It had same-day voter registration for federal elections. It had increased election security. It had campaign finance reform, including the ability for campaigns that had small dollar donors. If you agreed not to take more than $1,000 from any group or individual, the federal government would match all of your donations 6-1. It would have required all presidential and vice presidential candidates to publicly disclose 10 years of income taxes. And it would have banned partisan gerrymandering by requiring states use independent commissions to draw congressional district lines. Partisan gerrymandering, creating a map that unduly favors or disfavors one political party over another, would be prohibited. So the Democrats tried to pass one of the best election reform laws that was completely fair. It wasn't partisan, it wasn't biased, and not one Republican voted for it, and the Republicans gerrymandered it. Or filibustered it. This is one of those examples where the Democrats are clearly better than the Republicans. And they actually tried to do something good. Maybe they knew it would be filibustered, and so voting for it was costless. And maybe if there wasn't a filibuster, maybe they would have voted against it. But the point is, they at least went through the try. They at least openly tried to do it, right? This is one of the bills that when Joe Biden was sworn in, I said they have to get rid of the filibuster to pass this bill, or else we're going to have Trump again. Fortunately, they didn't abolish the filibuster, and the bill was blocked. And so partisan gerrymandering existed. So this is bad enough, right? Based on this alone, you would support the Democrats gerrymandering Virginia, right? Well, it's even worse than that, because when Donald Trump came into office, he went even further. Typically, districts are only drawn every 10 years right after the census. Well, Donald Trump came into power and he said, every state Republicans control, let's draw a new map. Let's do a mid-decade gerrymander, an unprecedented act. Trump influenced the entire country to do a mid-decade redistricting, which is draw new maps based on what people voted for and draw new districts using the most recent elections to super gerrymander. That was a decision he made. And the Republicans did it. They did it in Texas. They want to gerrymander the fuck out of Texas so they can extract as many seats as possible. And so all that shit is to say, any Republican, as I said, I'll go back to it, any Republican who says this is immoral or wrong or whatever, illegal, should go to prison. Unless they, which they don't exist, supported this bill. Glenn Youngkin didn't support the For the People Act. No Republican did in the House or the Senate. You should be silenced. You're a lying sack of shit. All they're mad about is that finally, for the first time in our fucking lives, Democrats are fighting back.
Steal the voices from millions of Virginians and disenfranchise them and take the Northern Virginia blue counties and jam them into the rest of the state in what is going to be, if it's not overturned, the most gerrymandered map in America.
Democrats say it's a response to Republican efforts in states like Texas to redraw maps, giving them an electoral advantage.
While Virginia voters said yes to the redistricting plan, the state Supreme Court is about to step in.
The amendment is challenged on the grounds that the state legislature broke its own rules by skipping a special session on the redistricting amendment and by using misleading language on the ballots. Democrats are also gearing up to take on Republican redistricting plans in Florida later this month.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely necessary.
Democrats and their allies poured $70 million into...
And okay, so we already watched this video. This victory is an unbelievable victory, and they barely pulled it off, which makes it all the more based.
And we've got some breaking news in that Virginia redistricting election we've been watching so closely. NBC's News Decision Desk has just projected that Virginia voters have opted to install a new, heavily blue-leaning congressional map. Let's get straight over to NBC's Steve Kornacki at the big board to break down how it went. Steve,
I'm so
what does it look
fucking
like
happy.
there?
Like, legitimately, I'm so fucking happy. This is so fucking awesome. This is like one of those coin flips that changes someone's life. This is like having $100,000 and you're $200,000 in debt, and you go to a fucking casino and you put it all on black and you win, and you pay off all your debts. You know what I mean? Like, this is the difference. Like, if had you lost this, you would have been bankrupt, doubly fucked with no hope. And now we just won the coin flip, and the path to a better world just got a little bit wider. The odds of us actually being able to do shit just got a little bit higher.
Last time we checked with you.
Very rare when you have a win that's just an unalloyed win. And the more, by the way, the more gerrymandered districts, the more blue the districts, the more socialists and leftists can run. Because if it's D plus 15 or D plus 10, you can have, then the primary is even more important. And there's less argument about like, oh, we gotta have a moderate in this moderate district. The more gerrymandered seats we get, the more left wingers we can run. The more opportunities we can run.
Those numbers were jumping, and it looks like we've settled.
Yeah, well, guys, no, I think you saw the sort of the big moment there when the big Democratic area of the state, Fairfax County, just outside Washington, D.C., it was the last to really report out its vote. It started to come in. It's overwhelmingly pro-referendum, supporting the map redraw. And as that vote just kind of steadily came in the last 20 minutes, the whole picture changed here. The yes side took the lead statewide.
I'm so
I suspect
proud of
this
this.
margin
This
is
is
going to
so
grow
great.
somewhat
This
as
is
more
awesome.
vote finally trickles in and we get a final result here. It will be a relatively narrow victory for the yes side. You could certainly say here that the Republicans that exist in Virginia, the Republicans were very motivated.
Too fucking bad, bitch. Too fucking bad, bitch. Welcome to democracy, bitch. Don't like it? Vote out the Democrats in your new district. That's what the Supreme Court says. Eat my ass.
They turned out for this. They came very close to defeating this. But, you know, look, ultimately, Virginia, it is still a blue state. The Democrats have a bit of an advantage in any given election over a Republican. And the Democrats got the big numbers they needed in those core Democratic areas tonight to push this thing over to finish line. And the consequences of this in terms of the midterm landscape here.
And by the way, chat, this is the leader of the Democrats in the Virginia Senate. I have utmost respect for Senator Kane and Senator Warner, but we do not need coaching on redistricting coming from a cuck chair in the corner. How about all you all stay focused on the fascists in the White House and let us handling redistricting in Virginia 10-1. She fucking did it. I mean, what can you even say? Now, I want you to understand that there are plenty of centrist Democrats I don't like who worked on this. Good. They empowered us. The left is empowered in the Democratic base right now. And the more safe Democratic seats, the more left-wingers we're going to have the opportunity to win. The more pressure is going to be on them. This is a W. I don't care if you're a fucking communist. You should be happy about this. Because this is a direct attack on the electoral prospects of the fascist Republican Party. This is an unalloyed win.
Are pretty significant, Gotti. I mean, just think of it this way.
This is honestly one of the biggest wins we've had. This is a huge W, and I hope to see it happen more and more. And I got to tell you, if I was in power, I would do this as much as I could everywhere. If I was in California, I would have 0 Republican seats. 0. They were kind of pussies and left them like 5 or something like that. I would have gerrymandered no Republican seats. None.
The House is very close right now. The Republicans control the House, but their majority
and the thing is like, in gerrymandering, the Democrats have an advantage because Republicans cannot completely erase Democratic seats. In many states, there are concentrations of Democrats that are too large that they can't effectively gerrymander it. So they have to pack, meaning they have to have some Democratic seats, even in extremely red states. But the contrary effect is not true. You could pie slice the motherfucking cities up easily to the point, especially in states like California, where you can create, you can make a spaghetti district. You could also do something that would be kind of interesting, which would be statewide. What I would do, another thing you could do is statewide districts. I guess you could do that.
These are thin. The Democrats need a net gain.
Vote for 50, chat.
In this fall's midterm elections, the Democrats need a net gain of 3 seats to get control of the House. Now, think about this. The current map in Virginia heading into tonight, congressional map, was 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans, right? Now that it's passed, this Democratic map has passed, the new map is likely to be 10 Democrats and just 1 Republican, right? So from 6 to 5 to 10 to 1, that's a net gain for the Democrats just in Virginia from what happened tonight of 4 seats. To win control of the House, they need a net gain of 3. They might have drawn that for themselves tonight and got it approved by the voters.
Yeah. And we'll see what plays out as this goes forward, because still a lot of time before then and now, and a lot of fights in so many different directions. But interesting to see those numbers coming out of Virginia tonight. Steve, thank you so very much.
We thank you. Holy Toledo, chat. And it just makes me so fucking happy.
We have some breaking news tonight, as CNN can now project that Virginia voters have approved a Democratic plan to dramatically redraw the state's congressional map. 92% of the results are in, with just over 51% voting yes.
Actually, chat, I was gonna have CNN cover it, but how about this? How about watching Republicans malding?
All right, now back to the Virginia redistricting measure, which could give Democrats an advantage heading into the midterms, and a big one at that. With former President Barack Obama writing on X, quote, "Congratulations, Virginia. Republicans are trying to tilt the midterm elections in their favor, but they haven't done it yet. Thanks for showing us what it looks like to stand up for our democracy and fight back." Our next guest lives in Virginia. Defending Education founder Nikki Neely joins me now. Nikki, thank you so much.
I fucking love it, because these rat fucking nihilistic lying sacks of shit have been cheating for over 20 years. And they're finally getting the taste of their own medicine back, and they're fucking crying and whining. They're crying and fucking whining. Also, what is this hairline? What is this hairline? Are you balding? Is this a comb over?
For joining us on this. One of the notable things about this is that this was narrowly passed in Virginia, 51.5 to 48.5, but it's going to have a major implication when it comes to the congressional map.
Or I should say
it will change
part.
It drastically. Could give Democrats 10 seats to Republicans 1. So as a Virginia resident yourself, what do you think about this?
This is sickening. You know, Virginia used to have what was basically the most fair maps in the country. Our congressional delegation of 11 seats sent 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans.
Oh, and then you guys gerrymandered the fuck out of Texas, Ohio, Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Every place you had power, you cheated with. And now you're crying like a little bitch because you tried to cheat more. And the Democrats responded. And the funniest thing about the mid-decade redistricting is that the Democrats wouldn't have done this on their own, right? They would have just eaten shit with the fair maps of the states they had won, and they would have had a disadvantage because the Republicans have already maxed gerrymandered as much as they can. There's very little. They can only make marginal gains from gerrymandering more, maybe 3, 4, 5 seats, because they're so gerrymandered already. But because the Republicans did that, that gave the Democrats the opportunity to we're being attacked. They're cheating. And then we got to gerrymander California. We're gerrymandering Virginia. They would have never done that on their own. So it's going to end up, the Democrats are going to end up winning the redistricting fight bigly because they don't gerrymander. The only states that they gerrymander is Illinois and maybe Maryland. But Maryland is not that big, and they still have a pussy gerrymander. They didn't even go for the gold. So like only really Illinois has a good gerrymander. Every other Democrat gerrymander sucks. New York doesn't have a gerrymander. New York does not have a gerrymander. I'll say that again. New York doesn't have a gerrymander because of Andrew Cuomo and the centrist Democrats trying to block progressives so they maximize the amount of Republicans they can put out of New York. It's fucking insane. And centrist Democrats never mention that for some reason. They don't seem to care that Andrew Cuomo worked with the Republicans to gerrymander New York to make it good for Republicans. And then the Supreme Court judges he put into office voted to block Democrats from being able to gerrymander New York. So New York has a conservative majority on the Supreme Court. And how long have Democrats been in power in New York? They have a conservative Supreme Court because of Andrew Cuomo. And people will say, oh, you got to vote for Andrew Cuomo. But for the first time in our life, the Democrats fought back.
And so, as you said, now it's going to be 10-1. But this whole referendum was a gaslighting attempt. Much like we were told Abigail Spanberger was a moderate, we were told that this was a temporary measure. We were told that it is to restore fairness.
Suck us from the back. Suck it. Suck it. You don't like it? This is like, I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I don't know what even... Like the arrogance of these people, the gall of these people. It's unbelievable how stupid they are. It makes me want to do more. I want to see these people suffering because of how evil they are. They can't even be like, you know what? We kind of deserve this. We've been gerrymandering a lot. Republicans have been gerrymandering a lot. We got caught. Now the Democrats are doing it. And I think everybody can see that this is silly. We should come up with a compromise for fair districts. Right? Because they're such scumbag pieces of fucking shit. They can't be honest for 5 minutes. So my response is pound them, destroy them, maximize it, gerrymander the entire country. Because if they are unwilling, even in the face of their own shit coming back to bite them in the ass, they still can't be honest. They're still doing the propaganda 100,000 quadrillion %. What a fucking scumbag.
There is absolutely nothing fair about upstate Virginia basically dictating what is going on for the rest of the state and the rest of the country. Because, you know, it's the signs that we saw that had the most resonance downstate actually said, don't Fairfax my Virginia. And I think there's a real disgust with how Northern Virginia is stomping all over lower income Virginia and rural Virginians' rights.
Yeah, and the way that this ballot question was phrased is being called into question because it actually included that.
By the way, look at how they do this woke shit, too. Look at them crying and whining and doing this woke shit that they are. What fucking oh God, crush them. I think people really, like, one of the funniest attacks people have towards me is that I'm like a Republican or I like the Republicans or whatever. If you put me into power, there wouldn't be a Republican Party.
Term that this measure would restore fairness to the election process. You have National Republican.
By the way, if the Democratic Party operates like this, I'll lib the fuck out. If the Democratic Party ruthlessly crushes the Republicans and installs a bunch of fucking Democratic socialist reps all over the country, I'll become a proud Democrat. What I want is the implementation of policy. That's what I care about.
Congressional Committee Chairman Richard Hudson also releasing the following statement, Nikki, saying, quote, Virginia Democrats can't redraw reality. This close margin reinforces that Virginia is a purple state that shouldn't be represented by a severe partisan gerrymander. That's exactly why the courts, who have already ruled twice to block this egregious power grab, should uphold Virginia law. Even under this map, Republicans will hold our majority based on our record cleaning up Democrats' mess. And you also have former Governor Glenn Youngkin urging the Virginia Supreme Court to rule against this. So is this fight over?
This fight is not over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have, if you were in power, there would be a Republican Party because you'd blank them all. No, you should consider this hour timeout as a sign that I would never argue in favor of crimes or violence. Anyway, chat. Right now, we have a hype train. We are 3 hours into the stream, and I don't know about you, but I'm having a fucking blast. The Republicans are fucking mauling. And here's the thing. They're so dishonest, and they're so pathetic. I can't wait to go into the comments. But I promise you guys, gals, non-binary pals, that if I get power, I will be collecting conservative tears and selling it as merch. MAGA Tears Collection Agency. So if you enjoy this content, please consider supporting it by subscribing at Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can attach it to your Twitch account. You get 1 free sub a month. That's your Twitch Prime sub. That's taking $2.50 some out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and putting it into mine. Make billionaires fund socialists. You can implement your own tax on Jeff Bezos by using your Prime right fucking now. Ham and Fist, thank you for the 20 bomb. Can we get some bended knees to our gifters? There's a lot of people here working paycheck to paycheck, parents of young children, college students, people on a fixed income because of retirement or disability, regular people struggling to make ends meet. If you are gifted a sub, say thank you. For example, Hammond Fist just gave a sub to Dave Myers and Hydrogen and Wasted Bandwidth and Ray Fen and Honey Less and Rooster on Ride just got gifted by Lazy Gain. Say thank you. If you are a fucking lurker and all of a sudden you get blasted with a sub, say thank you. I was gifted a sub like last week and I didn't notice until like yesterday. Thank you. I'm so glad. If I have the opportunity to work as for a Chinese AI lab as an American, should I take it? Listen, here's what I would say. Under Joe Biden, he made it a severe felony to help China on chips and things like that, and you could lose your citizenship. And some people are being prosecuted for helping China in places like chips and aviation right now. They just kidnapped a guy out of Australia who gave up his American citizenship. So you should be careful. I obviously believe in international cooperation on sciences, and I think it's batshit crazy what Joe Biden and Donald Trump are doing, and I don't think it's going to work. In fact, I think it's going to backfire. Anyway, if you enjoy the content, please consider supporting it by subscribing. Thank you so much for the 67 months in a row from Starry Night. 67 primes in a row. Holy shit. Comrade Simon, thank you for resubbing. Don't forget, chat, the top. Safrisa, thank you for the tier 3. All right, I think we're caught up. Posh Kenneth, thank you for the 5. You guys are the best. Chat, we are dangerously close to our 7,000 sub goal. We're at 68.29. 68.29. So please consider supporting the stream. Just in from Ryan Grimm, the Iranians detained by ICE weren't even related to Soleimani. Yeah, I know. It's very evil. Anyway, let's get back to laughing at the Republicans for crying like the little defeated bitches they are. I wonder what the comments are saying. You guys are unbelievable. You started it. What's sickening is that the GOP started this in Texas because they wanted Jasmine Crockett out, and Trump said he wanted 4 more seats. Then he screamed when Gavin Newsom added 4 more seats, even taking it to court, and they lost. Trump is trying to federalize elections, but it's up to the states, not the feds. I didn't hear Fox say a thing when Abbott did it. This gender nonsense is just that nonsense. This is not happening. Children are not going to school one gender and coming home another. It's all lies. How come the voters in Texas didn't get to vote on redistricting by the GOP? I mean, they're such fucking losers, man. Calm like a Tom. Thank you for the 20 bomb. Holy shit. Thank you so much, brother.
The action goes to the Virginia State Supreme Court. So this is going to start, it's going to kick off again on Monday. And I think many of us are hoping that the courts will do the right thing in this, because this is deeply unjust. This process has been flawed from the start. I mean, the fact that they kept this special session open, just everything about this process has truly, the fact that they have used the term fairness is kind of sickening, because this is anything but fair and it is anything but democratic.
Yeah, and we want to switch gears here to something else, because the organization that you founded just did a study and found out something that all parents in Vermont should know about. Can you tell us about this?
Yes, my coworker just did a big study looking at all the districts across Vermont to see if they maintained what we call parental exclusion policies. And we found that actually about 2/3 of the districts in the state of Vermont do. These are policies that say you as a parent do not have a right to know your child's gender identity at school. And these are often paired with policies that say students are able to use the locker rooms and bathrooms of their preferred gender. And so these are things that are taking place in public school districts, which are taxpayer funded, behind families' backs, which is appalling to me. But the really disappointing thing to us is that the Virginia State Education Department, the Virginia Agency for Education, this is actually considered best practice by them. And so these are state officials who are doing these things. And we find that just absolutely appalling that this is happening in America's schools in 2026.
Is Vermont breaking?
What the fuck are we talking about? They couldn't even spend 5 minutes talking about the gerrymandering defeat before going into the trans nonsense. This is why you have to keep winning, folks. They can't, oh my God, just keep punching them in the dick. Keep punching them in the dick. Holy shit, this is fucking hilarious. You can't be fucking serious. You can't be fucking serious. Guys, I posted a reply to this, or a quote tweet. She also posted this. Thank you, McDonald's, for hiring those facing federal job losses. Every family deserves to earn a living, and that's why we raised our minimum wage in Virginia to $15 an hour. These are the 4 Republicans who are going to lose their seats to the gerrymander. This would be if they actually got hired to be a fry cook at McDonald's, it'd be the first time in their lives they ever did a day's honest work. And I posted this. She fucking did it. And really, ladies and gentlemen, like, not only is the gerrymandering amazing, they actually pulled it off in like a middle of April special election. It's super partisan, and they won. God, this is so fucking cool. I want more people. Oh my God, disgusting. Ew. 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 Why would you interview her? Ew. Nobody cares. Ew. Josh, what the fuck are you doing? Everybody be nice. No. Vomit emoji. That's my reaction. Contra points how online politics became real life. What a fucking loser. Jesus Christ. Ew. She fucking sucks. Oh, thank you guys for the level 10 hype train, by the way. We ended up at 68.55. We're getting dangerously close to 7,000 again. Dangerously close. Did you see Hassan is in PA News? Hassan is getting... How is Hassan affording all of these? How is Hassan affording all these puff pieces? Negative 20,000 again? All right, let's watch the Hassan interview on the New York Times. I think we've found ourselves a good ending point. The Democrats did something right. It makes me happy. I'm in favor of it. I think we should gerrymander more. And if you are surprised by my take, you don't understand politics. I believe that we should have as many Democratic districts as possible, because then we could steal as many of their districts as possible. The more they gerrymandered, the more opportunity to run to the left.
Feel bad about it at all.
I'm proposing a new term, micro-looting.
I started going into the grocery store, I would pick up the thing that I wanted, and then I would go.
It's a survival technique. Gotta eat to live, gotta steal to eat.
You're paying for that, right?
No, babe, food is a human right.
People are taking small things from big corporations, and they're feeling...
Okay, first of all, motherfucker, I'm so mad. I'm being specifically gatekept. I'm being specifically gatekept. If I was a right winger, I'd have 8 fucking New York Times pieces about how great I am. Because motherfucker, I don't know if you guys have seen my playlists, but I've had this shit as one of my songs for like, what, 5 years at this point? Where is it? Where is it, chat? Where is it?
Here's a PSA.
Sometimes it's A-okay
to take bottled water from major grocery chains. Self-checkout is a wonderland that heals your heart.
when you keep secrets at the bottom of your shopping cart.
When it's ignored by the bored teenager in a vest.
His name is Tyler, he's a senior, and he's the best.
You would agree that sometimes you gotta steal from corporations. It's your civil obligation. Theft isn't polite,
but water's kind of tight.
And if you get caught, just use the powers of persuasion. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't even remember that I put those down there. I'm sorry. And my groceries were covering it all up. What's that? Did you want to see my receipt? I'm sorry. I actually can't. I thought it was a yummy saltine cracker.
Sabrina is so cool. What a bass song. About like 10,000 of those views are mine. Incredibly bass song. Okay, where were we?
Justified.
Like, look, everyone's shoplifting from Whole Foods when you're shopping there.
You're not gonna steal from a deli like that. But Whole Foods, fuck Whole Foods. Fuck Bezos, fuck Amazon, all that.
We should be rioting, but we're tired, so I'm gonna take these bagels.
But is it a slippery slope? What's going on with our moral code? To find out, I'm talking to political commentator Hassan Piker and New Yorker writer Gia Tolentino. Thank you both so much for being here with me today to talk about this. Hi, Gia.
Hi.
Hi, Hassan.
Hi.
I want to start with a little exercise just about our own morals. Would you share your Netflix password?
I do.
I also do. Well,
with anyone.
For the longest time, I actually had someone else's Netflix password. That was my primary access to Netflix.
And now you share your own?
Yeah.
Would you get around to paywall on an article you're trying to read?
Do it every day on my stream.
Yes,
every
and
day.
I support it when people do it for my own work. I say, go off. Use the Wayback Machine.
Would you pirate music from an indie band?
Is it 2005 and I'm using LimeWire? because yes.
I feel like every millennial has at some point done this.
I feel like fundamentally Spotify is kind of like deleterious to the musician livelihood, and I use that. But then I go to the shows.
Okay, let me just say this about like paywalls and things like that. Newspapers and media and journalism is not dying because of people going around paywalls. All right. What is happening is, hey, you Gopnik Raiders, welcome on in. How you guys doing? It's happening because there has been a ad sales monopoly developed online. Namely, Apple and Google and AdSense, etc., Facebook, they're taking all the ad revenue and taking like large percentages of the ad revenue. They are middlemen that are stealing it. In the past, people used to buy ads directly from like the newspaper. You would call up the newspaper, they'd have an ad sales guy, and you would buy a classified or you'd buy a full page ad or whatever directly with the newspaper. But because of the way the internet has been set up, there's this capitalist toll booth in between people wanting to buy ads and people that actually create the content. For example, Twitch, if I were to run ads on my stream, they take half the fucking money. What did they do to produce the content? Nothing. They're just a toll booth. They sucked the money up. And so, like, the internet and journalism are dying because capitalists have set up rentier systems where they're like feudal lords that take up a large percentage of the money that should have gone to content creators or authors or journalists and are being parasited by the likes of Google and Facebook and Amazon. It's fucking garbage. They're rent seekers. That's why I believe we should nationalize AdSense. Those systems should not be privately owned. They should be administered by the government, by some third-party nonprofit, and maximize the amount of money that actually goes to the content creators, that money that actually goes to the creatives, money that actually goes to the people that do shit actually, as opposed to worthless parasites who sit there with a toll booth collecting money. Why? Because the government gave them money to set up this infrastructure 20 years ago. They got tax breaks to do it. Fuck no.
I'm pro piracy all the way, like across the board. Would you pirate a car? Yes. You know, if you could, if one could pirate
a car,
it was just a classic thing back in the day. The government funded anti-piracy initiatives would be like, dude, would you steal a car?
Would you download a car? Would you download a car, Hassan? Would you download a car? And that actually goes to, and by the way, everybody follow Ugopnik and I. And also, if you're not already doing the reaction podcast, what are you doing? Exclamation point reaction. We are recording with Samuel Cedar very soon. So we've already had Hassan. We had Liv Agar. We're up to episode like 9 or something. We are locked the fuck in making content with you. So go to the reaction podcast, subscribe right fucking now. There's going to be a fun half. And the point of like the would you pirate a car? Like what do people mean by that? The answer is like a car takes physical labor to assemble, right? But there's also intellectual property in a car. There is software. There is design. There is other systems that require like a non-physical element, right? That exists in the space between a material product and a pure idea, right? And so if we lived in a world of Star Trek, right? Imagine we have Star Trek world. I love the replicator because it's an amazing idea and it helps synthesize this. Imagine that you could go to a replicator. Imagine a big industrial sized replicator. You could walk up to the replicator and you could pick any car or motorcycle or anything. And you could punch it in, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop, and it would materialize. Who should get paid? And the capitalists believe that there should be like a Porsche license and you should be paying Porsche for the right to have the Porsche that got spit out of the replicator with no labor. Because they had the idea of the Porsche, right? And there should be some sort of financial, monetary, long-term transaction. And I want to live in a world where there isn't. I want to live in a world where you do download a car.
If I could get away with it, if it was as easy as, pirating IP, I would do it. Yeah.
Would you dine and dash from your local diner?
Never.
Absolutely.
Except 35%. Mike's, come on.
No, I wouldn't do that. And if I saw somebody doing that, I'd probably pay for their meal.
Yeah. Would you steal a book from the library?
Never.
No.
There's only one book I've ever stolen from a library. And I stole this book so no one else would be cursed enough to read it. Anyway, let's keep going.
Would you steal from the Louvre?
Yes.
I would not be logistically capable of executing such a fact, but would I cheer on every news story of people that I see do it?
By the way, chat, I keep forgetting to return it. But I don't think anybody wants it. So, you know, not like people are trying to rent it. Not like people are trying to check out abundance. I'm technically borrowing it. What is your view on AI bums stealing art? Oh God, my general feeling is that AI is not AI. That's number one. It's not intelligence. It is a predictive model. It's an advanced predictive model. I think that it's mostly slop. And the problem with it in particular is it's most damaging to the paces of art that are where commercial use is the highest, right? Like if you're a designer and you're paid to design logos, like small business logos, that's the place where AI generative art is the most damaging because it's commercial art and people don't know what the fuck they're doing and they don't have any appreciation to what a good logo even is, right? And I don't even really consider it art. I feel like that's a misnomer. I don't think there is such a thing as AI art. You could say there are AI images, but I don't think those are art. There are image outputs. I don't think that's art. But I also believe that there is probably some sort of utility in the generative, like that model. Like there's probably some utility, pattern recognition. It's probably going to have some sort of assistance in like search. I think if it get refined into search, like, you know, if you could type in like, hey, blah, 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 like as a more advanced search model, you know what I mean? I kind of consider AI to be, or like the generative AI that we have to not be very good in general, but I feel the same way about Google search. So all in all, I think I have kind of a Chinese mentality toward it. Which is like, it's probably overblown, but there are specific tasks that it might be useful for. And it's probably worth looking into and researching and maybe investing an amount into it as long as the models are open and not proprietary. And it's not, and I believe that it should be, you know, we should basically prevent it from being used in war as much as possible. I'm very concerned about autonomous weapons and privacy being obliterated from that shit. So I don't know. I think it's probably, it's like a Pandora's box where it's like, you know, the people that have the position of like, we should destroy it. I think that world is just not going to happen. You know what I mean? I feel like there's just already been trillions of dollars invested in this thing. It's never going to completely go away. You're mistaken. It's just a tool. As a previous graphic artist, now civil engineer, I use it extensively. It's just a tool. It's way more akin to a paintbrush or power drill. That's kind of basically what I said. I don't think I disagree with you. I think the main problem, the thing I'm concerned about with AI is cognitive offloading. And what I mean by that is very few people know how to read critically or understand that AI is highly flawed and sycophantic. And so you can't use AI to like prove something, really. It's going to adopt whatever frame you want it to adopt. And so you have to treat it like you would any other piece. You know, imagine an extremely biased person giving you information. Like, would you accept that as true, or would you understand that that is a questionable source? Also, I'm not a generative AI expert. That's the other thing. I try to be humble here because I don't know it. And I know a lot more than 99% of people, but I feel like most people talk about this shit not knowing anything. Anyway, let's keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's cool. We gotta get back to cool crimes like that. Like, you know, bank robberies, right? Stealing priceless artifacts, things of that nature. I feel like that's way cooler than the 7,000th new cryptocurrency scheme that people are engaging in.
Mm-hmm. Would you steal from Whole Foods?
You want to go first?
Yes. And I have, under very specific circumstances. I think that stealing from a big box store, I'll just state my platform. Mm-hmm. It's neither very significant as a moral wrong, nor is it significant in any way as protest or direct action. But I did steal from Whole Foods on several occasions. Like, I've been involved in like a neighborhood mutual aid group since 2021. And so every week I would go get groceries for Miss Nancy, my now family friend who lived nearby, and she wanted to go to Whole Foods. She wanted food from Whole Foods. So I was like, okay, great. And so I'd be getting Miss Nancy all her groceries, and then I would finish and I'd be like, oh my God, 4 lemons. I forgot 4 lemons. And on several occasions I was like, I'm just going to go back, grab those 4 lemons and get the hell out. And
you should go to prison.
I know. You think they're going to ban me?
They should throw you in jail.
But I didn't feel bad about it at all.
And was part of it.
I feel like I'm going to have a surprising take on this. Are you guys prepared for the surprising Mike from PA take? I feel like this is a sign of the social contract dissolving. And in general, that's bad. And the reason why that's bad is people don't feel like they have a mutual interest in behaving according to what the rules are supposed to be, because the rules hurt them. And that's a sign of profound societal failure. And I'm not saying that what these people are saying or doing is wrong. I'm saying that it is a sign that people don't buy in to the status quo. They don't buy into the rules. They don't buy into the game. They don't buy into, I need to do X, Y, Z to follow the rules, and following the rules is important. And that's a sign of severe societal crisis, because they don't think the social contract cares for them. So why do they care for the social contract? And once that system starts to break, it's pretty hard to fix. And I think we're at that point. I think we're at the point where, I mean, and I feel the same way. If I saw someone steal lemons, I wouldn't give a shit. I would just go, meh, whatever, not my problem. But in China, you wouldn't see people stealing lemons. And because you wouldn't see people stealing lemons, everyone's safer. Like, I could put my laptop down on the sidewalk with a note saying, hey, I'll come back in 10 minutes, and no one would take it. But if I did that in America, it'd be gone instantly. I'd rather live in a society where if I forget my fucking tablet at the coffee shop, it'll be there when I go back 100% of the time, and live in a society where if I go up to take a piss, it's gone. That's the society we live in. That's bad.
Because of how you feel about Whole Foods as a corporation?
Yeah, it already felt like a bit of a compromise. Like at the time, I was like, I had not been to Whole Foods. I had a bit more sort of consumer discipline about where I was spending my money then. And I already felt like I was in the hole even by shopping there. And it certainly felt in a utilitarian sense. I was like, this is not a big deal.
Well,
right, guys?
I'm pro stealing from big corporations, because, they steal quite a bit more from their own workers.
I completely agree with Hassan, but at the same time, it's almost like, can I say it's almost like a nihilistic feeling, right? Where we're not even trying to attack the big corporations. We're adopting them as like permanent fixtures of the universe. And the most you could do is kind of gently throw a little bit of sand into the gears. Otherwise, go about your day as a cog. It's intellectually and politically impoverished. Again, I'm not attacking Hassan. I'm just observing. And it's a bummer. It's just like, instead of thinking to ourselves, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to, take this lemon or this extra donut or whatever. And that being the end of our political horizon, which is like a small individual act of rebellion, right? How about we do bigger acts of rebellion and we take power from the corporation completely and utterly and irrevocably? Your theft is already part of their bottom line. They already predict it. It's already priced in. It's called shrinkage. It's on the balance sheet, and it's not that much money. You know what I mean? Like, they're stealing far more from you than you could ever steal back.
However,
if you go to China, this is what $10 of groceries is like.
So I've been living in China for almost 8 years now, and what still astonishes me to this day is how much I can buy at the grocery store for just $10. Oranges were 50 cents per pound, this daikon radish was 20 cents, I picked out a few of these peppers for dinner, and this bundle of bai cai tai was 34 cents. This shen cai was on discount for 55 cents, and a pack of discounted mushrooms for 70 cents. I also saw these interesting looking mushrooms for 82 cents, and I decided to give them a try. This pack of soft tofu was 40 cents, and Mingdao wanted this beer, which cost $1. Then I picked out a fish from the store's seafood section for tonight's dinner, and that cost $2. I just needed a small amount of millet from the bulk section, and then we couldn't help but add some snacks to the cart, like these Korean tomato flavored chips and a small tiramisu cake to share. After checking out, it all came to 72 yuan, or about $10. Let me know if you want to see more of what I can get at the grocery store for just $10. So
I got live fish and beer and a cake for $10. America, that would be like $60, I swear. Also, those are like gourmet mushrooms you couldn't find in most US grocery stores. You'd have to go to some like high-end grocery store to have those mushrooms. We're lucky to get like a button mushroom. If you have 2 mushroom choices, you're fucking balling out.
One thing that might even help your ethical dilemma is the fact that
Asian food markets have them. True.
The automated process that they design, these companies know will increase shrink, right? So it's actually factored in. The lemons that you stole are factored into the bottom line of these mega corporations regardless, and they still end up having increased profit margins because they no longer have to pay the cashiers that they used to hire, as opposed to this automated system, knowing full well that people are still going to be able to still steal a lot more efficiently, as a matter of fact, through the automated process.
Totally. Well, I was looking things up, and shrinkage is roughly equal internally as externally. Like they expect it from their employees that they are sort of disenfranchising constantly.
Yeah.
But what about the argument that if everyone just starts stealing wantonly from these self-checkout machines, Whole Foods will eventually raise the prices?
Yeah, chaos, full chaos. Let's go. I mean, look, I'm in favor of fast and free buses and also government-owned storefronts, and 2 of those policies the mayor of this beautiful city is currently working on.
Would you encourage stealing in the same way from a Mamdani run city-owned grocery store with lower prices, and why?
I would not, because I feel like that's taxpayer funded, and the prices are this.
Okay, the other thing is like, that's what I was talking about earlier with the social contract. Right, I worry about, call me authoritarian Mike, but if the social contract breaks down to the point where people are just arbitrarily deciding, yeah, I'm gonna do what I want, I'm gonna individually expropriate this thing, because I feel like it, that's going to only aid and abet reactionary framing. I like government city-owned grocery stores as being places where people feel like the social contract and society is on their side, not something that they're in opposition to, that they are feeling that they are in in opposition to. You know what I mean? And that is kind of the problem with this anarchist, I can't pronounce words, kind of individual act of social what's the word I'm looking for? Social no, it's not disobedience, it's social transgression, right? Like, I am transgressing and I'm doing this. There we go. Words are hard. Word finding fail. I think I'm getting tired.
In labor, and the prices are also adjusted regardless.
I think that hypothetical is interesting, right? Because if you look at it from a categorical imperative type thing, what if everybody did this? The converse is like, oh, what if every major grocery chain stole from workers and consumers, and that is basically true, right? Like, it's interesting. Like, I think it speaks to the thing where a kind of harm committed by the individual strangely continually draws more ire than the same harm being committed by a structure. And so I kind of am inclined towards this. It's like, everyone try it, see what happens.
Yeah. Well, by the way, ironically enough, I don't personally do it. I never do it. When I was younger, I stole some Pokemon cards from a friend, and my father punished me, and it was such a harrowing experience that I literally can't even steal like a candy bar. When we were in college, a lot of my friends used to love doing that. Getting drunk, going to the gas station,
college
finger discount. I would never participate in it, and I still can't to this day participate in it. I'm just saying that I personally don't really care. If someone needs the food, they should absolutely steal it.
There's one thing that's like stealing when you're a teenager and you want the adrenaline rush, and part of it is about testing the rules and getting away with something. But I feel like what I'm seeing on TikTok and social media is people saying that they're stealing from Whole Foods, not just for the thrill of it, but out of a feeling of anger and moral justification, because the rich don't play by the rules. So why should I? And Jeff Bezos has too much money. He's a billionaire. So why should I have to pay for organic avocados? My friends and I have started calling this micro-looting because it has a slight political valence to the theft as opposed to just the thrill of getting away with something. Have you noticed this around you online? Have you noticed more people talking about stealing in this way?
I mean, I have not seen people talking about micro-looting or such, whatever action that this is.
This is so fucking, I don't think this is, I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like. I don't think that this is politically a good strategy for the left. I gotta be honest with you, man. I gotta be honest. People in these white, professionally decorated rooms talking about how they swiped candy bars and they call it micro looting. I don't think this is getting the working class on our side. I gotta be completely honest with you.
Line, but it kind of speaks to an attenuation of the tactical language of direct
It's
act.
not even that it's a good look or a bad look. It's just when we talk to workers about how their bosses are stealing from them through the concept of alienation and exploitation, and we call for them to seize their power, right, and take back what is rightfully theirs. The important point of that argument is the rightfully part, right? And I'm sorry, but a New York Times trust fund baby stealing a Cliff Bar because she can't afford to also pay for hot yoga class, that's not speaking to the working class. It's just you stole the shit because you didn't want to pay for it. It is what it is. It just, I don't know. And I think a lot of people that are hard workers, maybe because I come from people like this. My mom had 5 brothers and 5 sisters. Okay, they were poor. She had me at 22. Okay, maybe our, the way I was raised is a little bit different. We had a lot of pride. We wanted to support ourselves. We wanted to feel like we were honorable. And I feel like organized labor speaks to that pride. And whatever influencers are saying doesn't. We want to fix the kleptocracy. Exactly. I don't want to live in a world where everyone is just snatching shit from behind each other's backs. I don't think that is going to redound positively toward left-wing politics. I'll be completely honest with you.
You know what I mean? It doesn't work for me as a form of direct action because it's concealed, right?
Exactly,
Any successful direct action history has to be ostentatious, has to make itself known, is ideally collective, and this is sort of necessarily individual.
Based. She's cooking. She's cooking now.
And hidden. But I'm like, oh, great. Let's think of ways to let's take this energy and let's move it into some other thing. I think it's great that the valence of property is kind of on the table as something to be toyed with in terms of direct action. I feel like we've forgotten there is a long and storied history of sabotage and sort of engagement with property destruction even, which is abhorrent to people. I mean, you remember in 2020, the Gucci, Chanel stuff in Soho when that was looted.
Well, NYPD is investigating a robbery pattern targeting high-end clothing boutiques in Soho. Latest happening Tuesday at the Chanel on Spring Street.
That looms so much larger in many sort of Bloomberg liberals' imaginations as profoundly more violent in some ways than the original action being protested, right? And I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the Boston Tea Party as part of that's a political destruction of property. And yet right now it feels like, I agree with you, the looting around the 2020 protests was such a huge talking point. It made people so uncomfortable. And I'm curious why, what do you think the root of that is?
I was thinking, that thieves are actually quite highly valorized in narrative, I mean, Aladdin, famously.
Stop thieves! Robin Hood, Jean Valjean.
Right, yeah. Jean Valjean.
Stole a loaf of bread.
We understand it's well within the collective consciousness that stealing for need or purpose, it's something that we understand and feel quite friendly towards. And I think if someone were, let's say, walking out of Whole Foods with an IKEA bag of whatever and giving it to the people, sheltering underneath the scaffolding at the jail going up in Brooklyn next door, I think most people would agree that if someone were to be stealing with a purpose, we love that in America. We do. We can love it again. Mm-hmm. We just have to do it with a purpose.
I was reading a Pew Research poll about Americans' morality, and it basically was just like, well, we didn't even ask about the obviously immoral things like theft. We only asked about like having an affair.
I would say that I think having an affair is more morally wrong than stealing in most circumstances. I think if you have an affair, that's a greater moral injury to another person than stealing, unless you're talking about like stealing such an extremely large amount that you ruin someone financially or destroy a business or anything. I think if somebody walks out with an extra pack of bottles of water from Target, that's I wouldn't even really consider that a crime. It would be more like, come on, man, don't do that. Don't do that. That's naughty. That's naughty. But cheating on your wife? Oh, that's fucked up. That's some seriously bad shit.
I was like, but I feel like part of what I'm seeing around me is that people feel like the laws are immoral. The rich don't play by the rules. We live in a society.
But I will also say this. I'm gonna be contrarian Mike again, which is I think cheating on your spouse is extremely bad, but I also think the way that people act toward cheaters is fucking unhinged and uncomfortable, and gender wars are weird. And people have, I don't, I think that cheating is a horrible, morally wrong thing to do. But I also recognize that it's part of humanity, and it doesn't mean a person should be executed. You know what I mean? Like, it is, hey, you shouldn't have done that. That was fucked up. You should, people should consider you a dick and a piece of shit, at least for a while. But I don't think you should go to prison or lose your job or be like shunned from society. It's a violation of consent. It's also a violation of your expectations in a relationship. Anytime someone violates expectations in a relationship, that's wrong. But cheating is especially wrong because that includes a violation of consent, right? Because if I have a monogamous sexual relationship with you, and then I go and have sex with someone else without your knowledge, and then I go back and have sex with you later, I'm introducing a risk of sexually transmitted disease. I'm introducing risks, all sorts of like risks that you did not consent to. That's fucked up. Oh my God. Theo has decided to feed me an American breakfast of pancakes. Theo hates these things. She would only make them for me. Isn't that right?
ESA bounce.
Theo is like, that's dessert, not breakfast. She would be like, that's not food. That's dessert. All right, let's keep going.
Society where there are billionaires, where the top 1% holds 32% of the net worth and the bottom 50% holds 2.5%. So at some point, if the laws don't feel moral, do you start to question your own sense of having to abide by?
And by the way, she's right. That's what I was saying earlier about the social contract is collapsing. That's why we need, at the bare minimum, if capitalists want to continue to exist, they better do redistribution immediately. It's like redistribution or die. And I don't say that because I'm threatening them. I'm saying that because that's the natural result of wealth hoarding, where somebody has so much more that they could ever use. And even if you read liberal political philosophy, this isn't even communist political philosophy. This is basic liberal political philosophy. I mean, Locke said himself that it was immoral to have so much if there wasn't as much and as good for others. Like, that's literally a Lockean quote, where it's like, if you hoard so much that other people are like starving to death and you're hoarding more food than you could ever eat, it would be moral to take it from you. That's not even like radical left-wing shit. That's liberal shit. Rousseau said that wealth disparity would ultimately lead to despotism. Oh, of course. I'm not even using Rousseau. Like, we obviously know Rousseau would say something like that. Also, do you think conservatives read Oakeshott? Do you think conservatives read Locke? Do you think conservatives read John Stuart Mill? Do you think conservatives read Hume? Do you think conservatives actually even know what their own ideas are? Do you think they read Adam Smith? I've read more conservative shit than they ever will. I just named all sorts of conservative fucking philosophers. I legitimately know that there's probably like, you can count on like your fingers and toes the conservatives that have read more conservative thought than me. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not by a lot. Not by a lot. Maybe there's 10K in the entire country. And they all have jobs as conservative professors or something. All right, let's keep going.
Of course.
Yeah. I wanted to work off of a point that you were making. This was also something that was addressed in a previous New York Times podcast that I did with Rouse Douthat, where I brought up the concept of adventurism. In the Marxist tradition, adventurism is the action that is oftentimes decentralized. Oftentimes anarchists will say this is the propaganda of the deed. The action itself, no matter how violent or how disruptive it is justifiable because the disruption is the point.
Well, it's not just the disruption is the point, although he's right. By the way, this shit, you will not hear this on New York Times. This is asshole puckering radical thought for them. You're not even supposed to tell people this kind of thinking exists. Just saying propaganda of the deed puts people down insurrectionary anarchism and all sorts of shit that the government is very afraid of. Very, very afraid of. So propaganda of the deed is not just to do disruption, but it's also to motivate more actions. It's to basically convince the working class that the ruling class is vulnerable and therefore defeatable. So if you go and shoot a healthcare CEO, that is supposed to be a demonstration of the vulnerability of healthcare, private health insurance industry. That's what they would say. I'm not advocating for that. God forbid. I would never ever advocate for anything like that. Okay? I would never ever advocate for anything like that. That would be insane.
I believe in the power of organized labor and labor militancy and building these structures of power so that we can actually make more effective change, more longstanding change. So concepts such as micro-looting indicate that there is an energy there, just like you said, and yet many Americans, I think, are totally oblivious to this political language. They lack the political education. They lack the class consciousness to recognize their position in society, and lack the capacity, unfortunately, to engage in some kind of organized disruption that would be infinitely more effective.
I think what you were saying about people lack the language and the organizing structure to engage in, like, the obvious thing to do if you want to chip into the Whole Foods / Amazon mega structure of exploitation is to unionize, like to work at a Whole Foods and form a union. And I think the first one was formed recently. And
the problem with, okay, listen, I'm in favor of organizing. Don't get me wrong. I've had fucking massive union organizers on this stream. I'm not against organizing in any way. Okay. The issue is that unions are a construct of law in much the same way that corporations are. And so if you want unions to be stronger, then you need to have better laws.
Philly, I think. But, it's like micro-looting. It feels akin to like a posting about something. Like it's a kind of, as an atomized individual action, it's useless. It's much harder to get a job and accept $17.50 an hour, and then to organize your colleagues, a process that takes years and is often unsuccessful. I mean, that's really, the thing about actual collective direct action.
The problem is it takes years. Why does it take years? Because that's the process the state set up to make it hard. You know what I mean? Like, if the state was saying to the union, or, it's very, here you go, a majority of people sign the union card, everyone's now in the union. If the government was pointing a gun at the corporation that says you have 90 days to organize a contract before you start paying fines, right? Like, there would be a different environment, right? You would have, bam, union would form and you have a contract in 90 days. Because the laws are different than that, you could even have it that as everyone's in the union. If you get hired at a job at McDonald's, you are in the fast food workers union. There's a union contract. Everybody who works at fast food has to pay the union contract rates. It's already negotiated at a national level, and there's no choice. That's all government and state enterprise or state action.
So much harder, and it often doesn't profit you whatsoever, such as me getting an extra $10 by grabbing my extra loaf of bread from Miss Nancy. Like, it's like I do think we are also lazy as humans. We're also selfish. We also we've lost not only the language and the union density and the structure to engage in things like this, but we have also lost the sort of muscle that is built up to be able to engage in these sort of things.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's federal law was changed. They passed a law under Truman that made a lot of the union organizing techniques illegal. You'll go to fucking prison. If I, as a union president, say we're going to do a sympathetic strike, I'll go to prison. My union will be fined $10,000 a day, etc. Like, If I say we're going to do a sit-down strike, you'll all be beaten and fucking thrown in prison for trespassing and battery and illegal union action, and they'll dissolve your union and they'll put your fucking leader in prison. Like, they made a bunch of the shit they did to make union density go up a crime.
We've lost the rooms in which these things are planned, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the confidence.
Well, that too.
I think we've lost the confidence within ourselves because there is not a lot of action like this. And in the absence of that, we lack the willpower because we don't even know what that would look like.
And I mean, you know, the climate protests in Europe tend to be a little more militant, right, than the ones that are here. And they are, you know, blocking roadways, like these things that are even objectively completely nonviolent forms of obstruction and interference that don't even involve property destruction, but merely the interruption of the capital flow of the workday, like are criminalized to shocking degrees to me, even in Europe, you know? And I guess I'm saying, like, maybe we are getting the lack of courage is maybe a rational response to the kind of the way these actions are treated in the popular consciousness as well as by the criminal justice system, but they shouldn't be.
I want to get back a little bit to the anger underneath this. Like in 1965, CEOs were paid 21 times the average worker. In 2024, CEOs are paid 281 times the average worker. I feel like some of this is coming from a feeling of like the social contract is broken. And then there's also the slippery slope of what happens.
I can see the Matrix, bro.
If we completely break the social contract and no one plays by the rules anymore. And I wonder where you two see the interplay of those two ideas.
Well, the rules are already designed in a way where if you steal from the poor, you become rich. If you steal from the wealthy, you go to prison. So there's only one direction where you can do unlimited theft and erode the social contract for the 99%. There's an invisibility baked into the system that allows the wealthy to engage in this sort of behavior. Because, I mean, it's a cliche at this point, but like wage theft is.
It's like I got in my time machine and I pre-watched this thing that dropped as I was streaming. Something that dropped an hour into my stream, I pre-watched.
It's the most consequential amount of theft that takes place in the United States of America.
Yeah, be right back.
A similar invisibility exists in structural violence as opposed to individual acts of violence as well. If it's a police officer engaging someone violently, the automatic assumption from the average person is, oh, that's probably a criminal. They probably deserved it. But if there's any circumstance where someone else is fighting back against police, like in a normal protest environment, for example, ultimately, most people assume that is chaotic. There's a chaotic situation, and that it is born out of the escalations from the protesters themselves, even if, as regular citizens, we're infinitely closer to those exercising their First Amendment rights than those with the power stamping out people exercising their free speech rights. We never look at systemic forms of violence, and we don't look at systemic forms of theft in the same way that we do as individuals breaking that social contract.
I think there is, you know, in my ideal world, what we are talking about, the one kind of theft being inescapable and hegemonic and, you know, completely oppressive, and then people trying to get a little bit of it back through stealing from Whole Foods or whatever, right? It's in the ideal world. It is not one in which this continues and this increases to somehow even it out, right? The ideal world is one in which the theft from above is broken by regulatory means and or bottom up means like unionization, right?
You were just talking about not being like we should encourage wanton theft across the board, but we should try and fight against the theft that comes from the top. It feels difficult right now in a moment when to like hope for regulatory change,
yes,
when that would come from the government, let's say, and a lot of the billionaires like Bezos and Cook and Elon Musk are given a seat at the table in terms of the government itself, when billionaires themselves pay much lower tax rates than most Americans. My producer was just giving me this fact that she saw today. 88 corporations that made $105 billion in profits in 2025, including Tesla, Southwest, United, Live Nation, Disney. They made $105 billion in profits, and they collectively paid income taxes of $0.
Right. I mean, it's a far more consequential withdrawal of resources and trust from the public sphere to do that, to talk about any individual thing that any person has ever done, right? Like, it's like, and I think, I mean, the 1%, the top 1% of Americans, 20% of their income is withdrawn from, is withheld from reporting every year, like as just a standing statistic. And that's not even a corporate structure. That's not even, I mean, that's just ordinary rich people, you know?
Okay, to go back, you were talking about sort of what you do see as effective political protest. And recently, a employee fired Kimberly-Clark warehouse as a protest.
Yeah.
Is that an effective form of political protest, or is that purely violent?
No, I found it, that you got to be tactical. I mean, I feel like Mike Davis wrote about this. It's like, it's not the action, it's the context in which it exists. And do I think that some sort of fire could hypothetically be framed within a collective action that is tactically useful? Yes. Does a disgruntled guy burning down the warehouse do it for me in terms of effective political action? Not at all. But
sabotage has played a formative role in labor union.
Everything.
Yeah, in labor unions as well. But if it's conducted unilaterally, then it's entirely different.
And that's an individual action. And if he could have gotten away with it without being caught, I bet I mean, I didn't follow this case very closely, but it seemed like, like anything done by an individual on an emotional, on a kind of primarily emotional whim, that's not the point. That's not the point.
But then when you feel this much anger and it doesn't feel like there's hope for it to be changed in a regulatory way, I think that's when you get to things like Luigi Mangione killing the CEO of United Healthcare and there being an outpouring of glee for murder online because it feels like finally someone can actually do something about healthcare. I think 40% of Gen Zers felt that murder was morally justified. But it's scary to be in a society where people feel that murder is morally justified. And I'm curious how we thread that line.
Yeah. Engels wrote about the concept of social murder. And Brian Thompson, as the United Healthcare CEO, was engaging in a tremendous amount of social murder, the systematized forms of violence, the structural violence of poverty, the for-profit paywalled system of healthcare in this country, and the consequences of that are tremendous amounts of pain, tremendous amounts of violence, tremendous amounts of deaths, and that was a fascinating story for me because Americans are very draconian about crime and punishment. They're very black and white on this issue, and yet, because of the pervasive pain that the private healthcare system had created.
Definitely a growing sense of rebellion that's starting to kick off with the warehouse fires. And I've said this before to many of the people that consider themselves socialists or communists online, specifically the ones who spend a lot of time attacking, say, AOC, Zoran, myself, Hassan, or whatever. I don't think they read a lot of books because in order for the working class to be able to effectively rebel, we need to have the ability to coordinate and work effectively and understand economic power and understand collective power and understand, and you build that up through practice. Strikes are a tactic of rebellion. How do you learn how to strike? Do you guys even know what a picket line is? Do you know what a scab is? Do you know what crossing a picket line means? Do you understand? There is a language and a practice of social democracy, of trade unionism, of socialism that you need to be familiar with in order to do a fucking rebellion or a revolution. And people are not going to instantaneously learn those skills without being parts of organizations that collectively exercise collective power. So what I'm trying to do with supporting these left-wing politicians is create the legal and political environment where we could build up independent class power and we could organize us around building an identity, which is about being a worker, right? Or being working class. You know what I mean? Being somebody who works for a living as opposed to somebody who owns for a living, right? And In order for that identity to become operative, that's what politics is. Politics is, can you get a majority of people to operate with the political identity you organize around as their primary political identity? The capitalists have done that. They know how to organize all rich people to think like capitalists and identify as a capitalist. The working class doesn't. There's all sorts of weird false consciousnesses and divisions and beliefs, whether tribal or religious or racial or whatever the fuck else, which are false consciousnesses that divide the working class so they can be manipulated to work for the benefit of capital. And so that is what, that's what we're working.
For the average American, I saw so many people immediately understand why this death had taken place. Even before they knew who the shooter was or what the motive was, we had universalized this pain, so much so that
he's right.
Virtually every American has a similar experience, a shared experience where they have a loved one that spent their last days, instead of spending them with their family, spending it on the phone, talking to their healthcare provider, to maybe get a little bit of economic respite so they don't carry on medical debt for their next generation, for their next of kin. That's a harrowing process for a lot of people. And for them, that is murder. For them, that is torture. And that is the reason why I think the reaction to Luigi Mangione, especially by younger generations, was not so negative.
I think also it's worth saying, it's not so much, there are not that many healthcare CEOs. There are not that many industries that are as universally understood as merchants of social murder, as of structural violence upon people. And it was as if the language appeared lit up within people that had never articulated it out loud. There are so few industries, maybe that is singularly the one that touches everyone, that harms nearly everyone. Even when Charlie Kirk was murdered, I kept seeing reactions online, leftists are celebrating. And I was like, all my friends were just like, yikes, this is going to get so bad, Yeah. And I don't think we've turned into a culture where murder is sanctioned. I think that we have turned into a culture where private healthcare is.
We have lived. Oh, no, we do. She's wrong. Engels came up with a concept, which is probably the most important concept to understand if you want to be on the left. And it's called social murder. Social murder is the concept that explains why the rich are evil. And social murder is basically creating conditions in a society that will lead to the preventable death of other human beings. So something that is a social murder, an example of that would be knowing that homeless people are going to die from exposure and refusing to give them a shelter. Knowing that a child will starve to death because they can't afford food. It is denying someone health care to fix their treatable illness, and so they die from it. It is not providing heating or cooling for someone to survive an extreme weather event. If you know that people will die because society refuses to provide them with the necessities of life or prevent the amelioration of the conditions that will lead directly to deaths of others, you have committed a social murder, especially if you personally profit from those conditions. And that's a murder that only has literally one level of abstraction. But for some reason, our monkey brains do not process that as the same as taking a direct action to kill another person directly, right? It's almost like, if I push a rock down at the top of a hill and it rolls and rolls and rolls and then it causes a landslide, that's what social murder is. It is, you look down on a village at the bottom of a hill, you stand with a big boulder and you push it down the hill at the village. Sure, your rock may not kill them, but your action predictably caused the natural event that led to their death. And our monkey brain has a hard problem understanding that if it's the same thing, but you push some paper, we don't see that as the same thing. And until our society treats those things as the same thing, which they are, honestly, I would argue that social murder is more evil than most murders are. Like if let's say you get into a road rage incident with someone and then you pull them out of their car and you beat them up, right? That's a horrible crime and you should be punished. You should be removed from society. But that person was emotionally upset. They were seeing red. They were like not themselves. They had an emotional break. They had a psychotic break where they lost control of themselves. So you know what I mean? Like there was an emotion there. There was some sort of a twisted version of a human explanation. But if you're sitting there cool and comfortable in an air-conditioned office, pushing buttons on the orphan murdering machine, you are a certain type of psychotic evil freak. Like that is more morally offensive to me. I don't go to Reddit. I like Hassan, but someone told me about him telling a trans chatter to have a miserable life during a stream in January 2020. He didn't tell trans people to have miserable lives. He was yelling at a specific trans chatter for being annoying. It wasn't because they were trans. It was because they were annoying. Trans people can be annoying. It's actually kind of transphobic of you to assume that trans people can't be called annoying. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
So profoundly immoral that people had a very particular reaction to Brian.
And that chatter is a Hassan fan, so I don't even know. That chatter is still around. Like, I know that chatter. I've met that chatter in real life. Like, that chatter loves Hassan. Next.
Brian Thompson's murder, right? Like, I don't actually think necessarily that we have come to a place where targeted assassination is seen like, you know.
I wonder with something like murder, like the murder of a healthcare CEO, is it just a release valve for anger, or is it actually effective political action? Has anything shifted in terms of healthcare in this country because of that?
I felt enormously frustrated in the weeks following that every single, like I assumed, I don't know why I thought that Democrats would immediately take this up as pushing a sort of unified message towards universal healthcare. I don't know why I expected that. I don't know why I was disappointed that it didn't happen.
Elizabeth Warren did it to her credit.
Sure. But you know what I mean? I thought it would be, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I expected that. But
anyway, chat, I unfortunately have to go because I need to record my podcast with Samuel Cedar of the Majority Report. So unfortunately, I have to bounce a little bit early. Sorry, guys. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We're going to cut out 20 minutes early. Everyone has a podcast these days. Yeah, but not everybody's podcast is successful like mine. So go to the Reaction Podcast and you could be the 10,000th subscriber in the first month. We are at 9,650 subscribers. So get in there, lock the fuck in to the Reaction Cast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm going to send y'all over to who's live. I have more viewers than Twitch. Pepe La. I have like 1,200 more viewers than Twitch. Fuck it. Let's do Woke Wilder. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Solidarity forever, my friends. Make sure you follow me on everything. Get in the Reaction Cast. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you listen to all the content. It's pretty great. Thank you so much for all your support. Stay safe. Solidarity forever. They had a Woke Wilder for me. And I'll see you all soon. Solidarity forever, my friends. Socialism will